Chapter 276. Making a nest. This is the crime scene. A makeshift shanty pieced together from corrugated sheets, with a large irregular hole torn in the wall. Through the jagged opening, the messy interior was visible. Tao Yu had arrived in front of a dilapidated building in the outer city, where several security team members were directing gang members to clean up the site. The surrounding environment wasn't very clean. Tao Yu had already put away his long robe, but still wore the mask of a partner. Mid-level partners who came to the outer city to handle affairs generally didn't wear cloaks either, as getting them smudged with those things was quite disgusting. However, the mask that Tao Yu wore was also enough to identify his status. When the members of the security team saw it, they all became more respectful, and then one of them approached to ask. "Excuse me, sir partner, are you here to investigate this case? For more detailed information, I'm afraid you'll need to go to the morgue." Just taking a casual look," Tao Yu said casually, while frowning at the dense crowd around him. In fact, he wanted to use the same method he had used to find Cheng Kun last time. But there were too many outsiders, and the buildings were too dense. Last time, Cheng Kun was by himself in the wilderness, and the distance wasn't far either. In this place now, the search range would definitely be reduced. Shouting out at every location? But then, Tao Yu was somewhat surprised as he looked towards the other end of the street. He saw Lin Chao leading several people from over there. His sister and Zhang Wei weren't with him. Behind him were Wang Zili, the grade A talent holder they had dined with last time, and several other figures who all seemed quite energetic. As soon as he arrived, Lin Chao noticed Tao Yu in the mask, and despite the mask, his face was full of surprise and doubt. "What are you looking at?" Tao Yu said with a smile to Lin Chao, which seemed to reassure the latter a bit. "I guessed it might be you. What's up, want to track number 11? At that moment, a nearby security team member interjected with resignation. "Lin Chao, please don't make things difficult for us. There's now an order issued about your boss's actions, we can't do anything about it, and we can't divulge any information if it's not allowed. Why don't you head over to the morgue to have a look?" Tao Yu listened and began to contemplate. Since returning, he was aware of the Chaoyang Society president's doings. The security team seemed to be targeting the Chaoyang Society somewhat as if they were grasping at their weakness. However, at present, it seemed that the relations between these grassroots members and the Chaoyang Society weren't that stiff, merely restricted by orders, which might have affected their cooperation in some matters. Lin Chao, having heard the security team member, spoke sincerely. "Brother Tao, you should know, our goal is just to find the person. We've already had several confrontations with this guy and have started to figure out some of his patterns. By allowing him to continue harming people in the outer city, aren't you worried that one day it might be someone you know who falls victim?" Though much time had passed, Lin Chao still maintained his resolve, no different from when Tao Yu first met him. "Oh? Your Chaoyang Society has encountered him?" Tao Yu asked, turning the conversation back to him. "We've actually been tracking him for several years. In the process, a number of our society members have died by his hand. Recently, I've led the team and managed to corner him twice with my talent, but his ability to escape is too strong." Lin Chao's response sparked a hint of interest in Tao Yu's eyes. "Oh? Your talent can find him. As long as I keep pursuing him, I'll increasingly encounter him more easily, but I need to continually learn of his new traces." Lin Chao's words also moved Tao Yu. Worthy of a rare talent, this intuition is really useful. My own meditation technique can also be effective, with even greater results when used, but such a needle in a haystack method of searching for someone is no match for his passive effects. "Good, I have some clues. Help me find him, and I will take care of it." Tao Yu's words made Lin Chao pause for a moment, then he quickly nodded. "All right." After speaking, he turned to the others and said, "You guys step back for now, and look for other clues." Those spirited youngsters behind Lin Chao, upon hearing his orders, appeared surprised. Wang Zili, with her grade A talent, said with concern. "Brother Chao, it's too dangerous like this. The last 2 times, it was evident that he was trying to ambush you. If we separate, it may provoke his attack." Wang Zili's words didn't surprise Tao Yu. The assailant actively ambushing Lin Chao must have sensed the threat Lin Chao posed. It indicated Lin Chao's team had indeed been patrolling the areas he frequented. "Don't worry, I trust Brother Tao's strength. He's never confronted me when we are many. Lin Chao seemed to be willing to use himself as the bait. Tao Yu nodded and slowly took off his mask, revealing his youthful and handsome face. It's indeed better if the two of us handle this. Don't worry, I promise to keep him safe. The others beside Wang Zili, who had met Tao Yu before, did not expect Tao Yu to be so young. But they had always been following Lin Chao's commands, and upon hearing this plan, although somewhat worried and reluctant, they still followed the instructions and left in groups. Your society members are getting better and better, Tao Yu said with a smile, watching the departing figures. He could sense that these guys were all quite powerful, and by their ages, most of them seemed to be from the development zone. These are probably the future elites. Jiang Wei got hooked on happiness, we're trying to help him kick the habit now. Sigh. Lin Chao also mentioned another acquaintance of Tao Yu, eliciting a sigh from him. Jiang Wei's talent was only average, and now he had gotten himself involved with that stuff. Even though he was indeed a very dedicated individual in the past, if he couldn't get through this, he might be ruined. And your sister? She's injured, recuperating in the society. She was ambushed by number 11. At that point, Lin Chao's face, seldom seen in anger, showed a flash of irritation. Subject number 11 was truly unscrupulous, having failed several times to ambush Lin Chao, he turned his attention to Lin's family members. This deepened the look in Tao Yu's eyes considerably. Such a scourge needed to be dealt with sooner rather than later. The two men were sharing information about the clues they had on each other while wandering aimlessly through the dirty and chaotic alleys of the outer city. They walked where there were fewer people, and where it was more secluded. Every now and then, Tao Yu would reinforce his meditation technique once or twice, directly onto Lin Chao. When it came to turning a corner, he relied entirely on following Lin Chao. And so they whittled away the entire afternoon, and once again the sky gradually dimmed. It seems we won't find it today, but I have a feeling, I always feel like he's nearby, Lin Chao said with some regret. Then it must be soon. Tao Yu also smiled, feeling some malicious surveillance intent lurking around, but he chose not to startle the snake by shouting. I'll take you back to your club first, don't be alone. Why don't you stay at our club tonight? Lin Chao suggested to Tao Yu. I have things to do back in the inner city today, don't worry, I'm quite capable of protecting myself. Tao Yu patted Lin Chao on the shoulder, causing him to shift his gaze slightly as well. The Chaoyang Society, now quite renowned in the outer city, occupied 3 streets close to the grey fog zone. Logically, given the current battle record of the Chaoyang Society's president, sweeping through the outer city would be easy, but Chaoyang Society still played by the rules. There was no much gain to be had here, and no other gangs wanted to mess with these tough nuts. Thanks to the reputation of the Chaoyang Society, many ordinary people from the outer city even moved to these 3 streets specifically. Looking around, you could see a dense array of shanties. However, the environment seemed to be somewhat better than many places in the outer city. Although people here looked hard-pressed, their spirits seemed to be better. The main base of the Chaoyang Society looked ordinary, like a factory warehouse, but Tao Yu could feel many vigilant eyes hidden among these peripheral shacks. Their philosophy made it easy for the Chaoyang Society to integrate with the ordinary outsiders, making it impossible to distinguish who their informants were. Brother Chao. Brother Chao. Little Chao. Big Brother Linear. Lin Chao was greeted all along the way here, and Tao Yu could feel their sincerity and eagerness, clearly seeing that the Chaoyang Society truly won the people's hearts, with Lin Chao commanding great respect within the society. He had always been like this, even before his talent awoke. Lin Chao responded to various greetings with a smile until he reached the warehouse door, where Tao Yu saw Lin Shui emerging with a crutch, hobbling along. There were signs of bandages on her face, one arm was in a cast, and one of her legs had even disappeared. Dark red stains could still be seen on the white bandages. Brother Tao. Lin Shui greeted Lin Chao and Tao Yu as she moved forward 2 steps with the support of a crutch. Lin Shui was usually lively, but this time her eyes darted away when she saw Tao Yu, and she kept her head down as if feeling somewhat inferior. Lin Chao also looked at his sister with affection. You need to rest well, I'll find a way to get the vaccine for you. Lin Chao sighed. The cheapest way to regenerate a severed limb was to take one's chances with demonization, discounting the vaccine, demonization was actually not that costly. Moreover, Lin Shui had been in the development zone, so going to the new world to recover would be faster. But factoring in the vaccine, the cost was about the same as getting an ordinary prosthetic limb. And although they now had the research team brought in by Tao Yu, the production of the vaccine was indeed very tight, giving Tao Yu some thought. Speaking of which, I lent a demonization vaccine to Panda. He went through demonization without using the vaccine and has been passing it around a few friends since. If it hasn't been used yet, ask him next time. Panda took a month to absorb the severe demonization contamination and got through it without using the vaccine. There was an inquiry last time, and Tao Yu agreed to it, unsure if the vaccine had been used up. If so, I can't thank you enough. Faced with his sister's plight, Lin Chao didn't beat around the bush with Tao Yu and expressed his gratitude. Don't thank me yet, we're not sure if it's been used. Don't rush to thank. Still, thanks in advance, and be careful on your way back, Lin Chao couldn't help but remind him, knowing that Tao Yu was probably planning to use himself as bait. All right, rest well, see you later. Tao Yu waved to the two and then headed out of the Chaoyang Society's control area. By this time, the sky had completely darkened. Chapter 277, Successful. I'm really not used to this. The completely dark outer city was almost devoid of any lights. The faint glimmers that did appear were either from fortress-like structures or gang strongholds. From afar, one could see the magnificent walls of the inner city with their lights and the neon lamps of high-rise buildings towering over the walls. But in other areas of the outer city, it was pitch black, without even the glow of a single light. However, this environment had no effect on Tao Yu, who easily avoided the mosaics on the streets. He walked on through the darkness. As he left the streets of the Chaoyang Society, the malice hidden in the shadows gradually increased. But apart from his spirit perception, even with Tao Yu's comprehensive strength enhancing his hearing and perception, he couldn't catch any signs of danger, which somewhat surprised him. Completely merged with the sounds of the wind? I don't know what kind of skill it is, but the stealth capabilities are quite strong. A wave of admiration surfaced in Tao Yu's heart, acknowledging that if he himself were to hide without using shadow evasion and just opted for the normal mode, he would at most achieve this level of concealment. And as he had already walked 2 streets away from the Chaoyang Society's territory, entering between the patchwork houses of the outer city, the hidden malice finally could no longer restrain itself. Da-da-da. The first to break the silence was a series of gunshots. In the darkness, both the muzzle flashes and the sounds were extremely conspicuous, as a barrage of bullets whooshed towards Tao Yu. The specialized armor-piercing bullets were hard to stop even with a bulletproof vest. However, these bullets, 3 feet in front of Tao Yu, hit an invisible barrier, creating ripples in the air. The bullet tips shattered, sending out sparks and fragments. The dense gunfire fell like rain, yet not a single bullet could penetrate the barrier. Oh, finally showing yourself, pretty cautious. Before opening fire, Tao Yu truly couldn't pinpoint the assailant's location. But now he instantly locked onto the direction, charging straight towards the source of the gunfire, leaving trails of afterimages in the air. The face of the one firing in the dark immediately exhibited a startled expression, hastily tossing the firearm and turning to flee. What had he just witnessed? The opponent had effortlessly blocked the sweeping fire of the AT-200 with an invisible shield. Gang Chi? Telekinesis? No idea. But being able to withstand so much and still charge forward already sufficiently revealed the opponent's identity. An advanced partner. Imposter. Agent 11's leg muscles deformed, coiling like a grasshopper to suddenly burst forth with power. The person shot out like a dart against the wind, unfolding his arms in the air, his wing-like appendages carrying him swiftly through the night. Every landing was followed by an explosive leap, covering a distance of 20 meters each time, coiling his leg muscles like gears in mid-air before springing forward upon touching the ground. However, when he started to look back, his eyes almost bulged out in disbelief. Even with his wings aiding him to glide, and the explosive speed granted by his modified legs, the opponent was drawing closer and closer. The pursuer seemed to merely touch the ground and float forward like a drifting leaf, leaving behind an afterimage. The speed was even faster than his own. Clearly without any augmentation, nor was it the raw power of rapid movement. How did he achieve such agility? This was indeed a trap set for him. That realization made Eleven's expression ferocious. How could this happen? How is it possible? So young, and I heard from your conversation that you come from the development zone. Why is this happening? I was so cautious. Before he could think any further, Tao Yu performed the flicking flower finger technique, flicking his hand and sending a beam of light flashing past, blowing Eleven's leg to pieces. A howl of agony as he crashed to the ground and tumbled over, rolling in the foul-smelling stagnant water on the uneven ground. Tao Yu, on the other hand, descended gracefully from the sky, gently alighting on a relatively clean spot. Now with his proud mutated leg broken, pressed into the mire, 11 clutched his severed limb with a face full of despair. How could this be? How did he run into such a powerful opponent? Gang Qi is bulletproof, unmatched in speed, and ferocious in attack. What is your weakness? Soon, what caused number 11's pupils to contract was the sight of Tao Yu's shoes, which stood on the relatively clean and dry ground without any dirt on them. How is that possible? He clearly caught up to me so quickly. Is he maintaining such speed while leisurely choosing only the cleanest spots to step on? This is utterly inconceivable. Are you really not insane? Only a pure madman knows to be this cautious. Is it a side effect of a skill? With a smile brimming with interest, Tao Yu watched the other party and tried to use the flicking flower finger to seal the opponent's acupoints, but found that the altered acupoints in this odd body seemed different from those of normal people. Fortunately, the overall shape was still human. After a few attempts, he managed to locate a few that were useful. The pure true Yuan was directed into the opponent's body from a distance using the flicking flower finger, instantly causing number 11 to stiffen, able to move only his mouth. Can you let me off, sir? I only target the mud-legged people of the outer city. I just need to kill one pioneer a day, only one. Completely subdued, number 11 now showed none of the ruthlessness of a serial killer, instead begging for mercy. He didn't want to die. What kind of skill requires you to kill pioneers? Upon hearing this, number 11 showed a bitter smile on his face, which somehow resembled a grasshopper in its red and green hues. I was set up. It's a highly contaminated and evil skill. It allows me to strengthen the jumping power of my legs by consuming the bone marrow of pioneers. If I stop for a day, my bones will itch unbearably, and if I stop for 3 days, I might die. I have tried to resist, but I can't. Tao Yu's spirit perception could sense that the other party's words were a mix of truth and lies, with some truth to them, but also some falsehood. However, this wasn't something Tao Yu was interested in. If he lied, so be it. It's not enough to buy your life. You're worth 120,000 alive, do you have information worth that much? Tao Yu looked at him calmly, clearly stating that this fellow couldn't even come up with 120,000 in cash. I do, there are heretic god followers in the outer city. And someone from the inner city wants to ally with the heretic god followers to go against the Chaoyang society. Number 11 spoke urgently. This information made Tao Yu frown slightly because his spirit perception judged that this statement was highly credible. Heretic god followers in the outer city is normal, but someone dares to cooperate with the heretic god followers? Is it a heretic god follower themselves? No, definitely not a heretic god follower, because they are very cautious and have not made direct contact with the heretic god followers. They must know the locations of heretic god followers' activities and tacitly dropped something there, which I happened to see. They're so discreet they can't be followers. Hearing this, Tao Yu understood the situation. Someone wanted to covertly direct the actions of the heretic god followers, who also knew what that someone wanted them to do, but both parties deliberately avoided contact, maintaining a tacit form of cooperation from a distance. If that was the case, it really sounded like the work of some force within the inner city. This immediately made Tao Yu think of the Longzi clan. Considering their performance at Master Wang's place, the probability was high. If they couldn't win openly, they'd play dirty. Though they publicly denounced heretic god followers, they didn't hesitate to use them when it suited their needs. This kind of duplicity seemed quite normal for those inner city powers, in Tao Yu's view. This information isn't worth 120,000. I know of a heretic god follower's hideout. You can sell that info. Where is it? In the East City District, on Wild Dog Street, those 3 thatched cottages. Still not enough. I also know. Die. Suddenly, number 11 opened his mouth and sprayed out a stream of corrosive liquid toward Tao Yu. The liquid formed a mist, shrouding Tao Yu completely, and a sizzling sound could be heard as the ground began to corrode. Tao Yu's spirit perception faintly warned him that this substance was dangerous. Probably poisonous, not bad, not mentioned in the intel, remarked Tao Yu, raising an eyebrow. Then it seemed as though a black smoke emerged from his body, allowing the corrosive mist to brush past him, dissipating like an ink wash painting being washed away. When he reappeared, he was already behind number 11. A spiritual thorn in his mind shot out, piercing number 11's body, eliciting a horrific scream before he fainted. Probably no more information, it's time to report back. Carrying number 11, whose acupoints had been sealed and who had passed out, Tao Yu's light-footedness made him blend into the night like a ghost. Lucky break, a great start to the venture. It only took 1 day to handle one. Lin Chao turned out to be quite useful, I'll take him out tomorrow for another spin. Chapter 278. 1 month. This task submission and Yuan Force claiming process are really tedious, such a waste of time. After completing his task and collecting his money, Tao Yu returned to the street and realized it was late at night again, prompting him to yawn involuntarily. 120,000 Yuan Force credited, finally giving Tao Yu some much-needed confidence. With this meager amount of Yuan Force on me, I'm always nervous, afraid I'll need Yuan Force for healing or recovery at any time. Now I feel a lot more stable. There was also a temporary hold on the 10,000 Yuan reward for the clue about the heretic god follower, which could be claimed after confirmation. However, Tao Yu refrained from mentioning the part about collaborating against the Chaoyang Society, since it wouldn't be useful to mention it due to the lack of information and clues. He could bring it up to Lin Chao later on and let them prepare themselves. My parents must be asleep by now, not sure if they're getting used to it. Nonetheless, Tao Yu headed in the direction of home. There weren't many people around the apartment building at this late hour, mostly decent families. 2 security guards gave him a look as he entered. But Tao Yu had made quite a commotion moving in today, so they knew he was a resident and did not question him. He swiped his card to enter the elevator, which hummed as it took him back to his own floor. That's when Tao Yu encountered a little surprise. Though he hadn't entered the house and no lights were on, Tao Yu could hear someone sitting in the living room, not sleeping. As he opened the door, he saw his third brother practicing inner strength in a cross-legged position. Only upon hearing Tao Yu's return did he open his eyes and asked in a subdued voice. Can't sleep, everything okay? He hadn't told their parents what Tao Yu had been up to, fearing they would worry, but he himself was anxious and unable to sleep. It went smoothly, I've caught the guy. Just that the task reporting was a bit cumbersome. Here, take these 20,000 Yuan Force for emergencies at home. Tao Yu handed over a magnetic card. This left Tao Tong visibly shocked. Holy shit! In 1 day? Just stepping out and he caught one? A bounty of 120,000. Really caught him? Alive. Caught alive. Your little brother is quite strong, you know. Tao Yu smiled. So we don't have to be so frugal anymore. I can just catch someone and all is taken care of. Tao Tong hesitated for a moment, but considering how Tao Yu didn't blink an eye at the huge expenditures to him for things like renting the house, if Tao Yu could really capture a wanted criminal that fast, then maybe 20,000 really isn't much to him. This made Tao Tong feel like he was dreaming. Since when could our outer city family calculate our Yuan Force in tens of thousands? In the end, he accepted it, saying, I'll keep it safe. It's not about keeping it safe, spend it if you need to. You should also speed up your own training. Don't waste the early stages where strength increases rapidly, the stronger you are, the safer and more secure you'll be. Tao Yu advised once more, knowing his family would definitely be thrifty with the Yuan Force. Truth be told, no matter what, the most reliable people were still family. If they ever needed someone strong to represent them in the future, if his third brother's strength was sufficient, he could step up as well. Starting tomorrow, I'll teach you the muscle changing and bone forging scripture. Get some good rest now. Tao Yu stretched and returned to his room. 3 rooms, 1 for the parents, 1 for the third brother and his wife, 1 for Tao Yu, and Stone slept in the storage room, a perfect setup. In a secluded street within the inner city, seldom traversed by pedestrians. Most of the shops along the street were closed, with various bizarre graffiti on many rolling gates and walls. The nearby trash cans overflowed, releasing a foul stench. The few puddles on the ground contained dirty water that had congealed over time. Pedestrians who had to pass hurried along, as if afraid to linger in this place. This was a typical 4th-tier security area, often the site of gang members fighting over territory. But today, 2 young figures sauntered leisurely through, standing out in the surroundings. Not wearing the partner uniform, Tao Yu looked around and said to Lin Chao beside him. Goodness, this last one is hard to find, it's been 10 days already. Capitalizing on the capture of number 11 and the resulting intelligence regarding the use of heretic god followers against the Chaoyang society, Tao Yu had dragged Lin Chao into conscription. Intuition was truly a useful talent. Especially when combined with Tao Yu's own meditation technique, even the bounties they picked had some clues to start with. Beyond number 11, the subsequent captures went smoothly, although they didn't wrap up in one day like before. Most were apprehended within 3 to 4 days, aided by information from the task hall. Tao Yu chose targets worth tens of thousands. These crooks, the strongest of them being veterans at the mid-level partner rank, perhaps remained uncaptured due to a particular strong suit. But they always had weaknesses. Despite being cunning with formidable hiding and survival skills, along with some desperate last-ditch efforts, they had their vulnerabilities. But in front of Tao Yu, it was still useless. Only once did he encounter an opponent capable of self-destructing due to mechanical augmentation. Tao Yu utilized innate time control, forcibly knocked him out with a spirit stinger, and combined with the killing intent of Big Dipper and fist intention, completely eradicated his consciousness, turning him into a vegetative person still possessing bodily life activities. However, when Tao Yu brought this individual to claim the bounty, he almost scared the person on duty and the staff into collectively fleeing, which left Tao Yu rather speechless. Fortunately, the handover went smoothly in the end. It's no wonder that the difficulty of the mission wasn't high, the location was marked, but no one accepted it. Probably because everyone was worried about the self-explosion. It's just that although the first few captures went smoothly, this last one, worth 180,000, with the highest bounty amount, stubbornly took Tao Yu a full 10 days, which was a bit of a loss. But having spent so much time, it would be frustrating not to catch him. This is really strange, wasn't the abyss escape route already blocked? How can she still be so good at hiding? Tao Yu was getting annoyed as he hadn't felt any depletion of his spiritual power from using meditation technique. Originally, this individual was supposed to be the easiest to catch because the intelligence indicated that the abyss end had already blocked her escape route. And precisely because of this, coupled with the fear that the individual might go berserk after being in the present world for too long, causing destruction, the bounty was set at 180,000. If she really threw caution to the wind and went on a killing spree, the loss would definitely be much more than 180,000. Lin Chao couldn't help but express his exasperation to Tao Yu. Do you think it's possible that after you caught 4 people similar to her in a row, she got scared? These bounties that accumulate to over 100,000 certainly did not involve any simple characters, nor were they easy to deal with. Sessions with a high bounty like this would definitely interest senior partners. Being able to remain at large until now, of course, they had some skills. It was normal for the last one to be scared after the previous 4 were caught within half a month. I've heard that it's not just her, other bounties have also become tougher to complete, and even the number of crazies caught at night in the inner city has decreased. Lin Chao carefully chose his words. Although he had been dragged by Tao Yu for almost a month as a conscript, he was actually very grateful to Tao Yu, who had obtained the vaccine from Panda and given it to Lin Shui first. If Lin Shui could pass on her own, there would be no problem. If she couldn't get through the willpower assessment, it would be used directly as a safety net. Because of this safety net function, the vaccine was truly expensive. For if it was not used, one could sell it again after the event, and since it was scarce on the market, it was tough to get hold of. Most of the time, one would need to pay a premium. Let's call it a day then, I'm hungry, let's go find Gauden. Alright, let's buy some groceries on the way, we can't always be mooching off him. Still, Lin Chao had an overwhelming sense of justice. Since his return, Gauden, with his cooking skill chip, had become the main provider of Tao Yu's daily meals. And it must be said, the meals were tastier than those of an average small restaurant outside, plus they were made with freshly bought Yuan Force ingredients. Truly splendid. He went on a mission to fill the scene today, don't know if he's finished with it yet. As neighbors, Tao Yu heard him mention this offhandedly. In general, Gauden's tasks were mainly stable and safe. With his status as a mid-tier partner and not weak abilities, he often completed a few thousand reward missions in several days, earning tens of thousands per month. The past few days were no different, serving as one of the many people hired to bolster the scene, with additional subsidies if fighting was required. But just as Tao Yu was about to casually check in with him through his wristwatch radio channel, suddenly, he felt a decrease in his spiritual power. This made Tao Yu's eyes shine slightly, and he stopped what he was doing. Wait, there's something going on, keep searching. Tao Yu's words gave Lin Chao a similar sense of urgency. It seems like it should indeed be around here. Lin Chao looked around. They were on a sparsely populated street, with the shops on both sides closed, and the neon lights above flickering sparsely. Which direction do you think is better? Tao Yu began to purposely feed spiritual power towards Lin Chao. Over there. Lin Chao pointed in a direction with his hand. All right. With a light tap of his feet, Tao Yu floated away, appearing graceful yet moving extremely fast. As he activated his movement, Tao Yu quietly commanded. Anan, come out. I've found you. The voice echoed, seeming to penetrate the entire street. But even with such a disturbance, not a single person dared to peek out. Instead, the sound of windows closing could be heard. And in the next instant, Tao Yu's eyes lit up slightly as he looked up toward the rooftop of a building. He had found his target. Ladder cloud climbing. With consecutive pushes against the walls, Tao Yu ascended rapidly, touching several windowsills, and soon reached the rooftop. Chapter 279. Cake. Anan felt a chill in her heart as she heard the voice that seemed to surround her ears. The slight soul-shifting effect mixed in the sonic skills made her truly believe she had been discovered. She immediately executed an acceleration battle technique and swiftly emerged from a water tank on the rooftop, running towards the escape route she had planned. But in the next moment, the sound of the wind from behind her signaled danger, and as she turned her head, she saw Tao Yu's figure gracefully ascending. No escape. Anan, with her extensive experience in fleeing, showed a trace of shock on her cute face as she immediately prepared to counterattack, propping herself up with one hand on the ground, forming a stable triangle. Her leg muscles tensed, ready to unleash a battle technique in an explosive burst. The short blade at her waist was in her hand in a flash, like flint's sparks, carving a Z-shaped flash in the air ahead of her. Even a senior partner's throat slit would mean death. But accompanied by a spirit stinger and a flicking flower finger from Tao Yu, she ended up sliding on her knees halfway through, skidding across the ground for a distance, scraping her knees raw, before collapsing at Tao Yu's feet. You give me such a big ceremony, but I won't be soft-hearted, Tao Yu said. Tao Yu looked down at the cat girl lying on the ground, her tail drooping, stark against the floor, which was kind of funny. However, after spending 5 days indulged in the company of beauties, Tao Yu's current defenses in this regard were off the charts, and he didn't give Anan any special treatment just because she was pretty. To her, Anan was no different from a beggar on the street. A pretty skeleton was still just a skeleton. He still accurately targeted the effective acupoints on her body to seal her true Yuan, then grabbed the scruff of her neck and leapt down from the rooftop. Done. Tao Yu, who had descended gracefully, looked at Lin Chao, who had just arrived at the base of the building using his legs, and gave an okay gesture. Lin Chao also holstered a somewhat sci-fi looking pistol. As expected of you, your speed is really fast. The intelligence said that she mastered many battle techniques and was not weak, Lin Chao commented. She wouldn't be worth 180,000 Yuan Force if she was weak, Tao Yu chuckled, teaching his family the muscle-changing and bone-forging scripture this month, practicing it himself, plus completing these missions, was quite fulfilling. After handing this mission in, even after accounting for this month's acceleration consumption, he would have saved up more than 400,000 Yuan Force. If it weren't for the fact that all the suitable accumulated tasks had run out, Tao Yu actually felt that grinding bounties here was quite profitable. At the very least, if he hadn't bought a flying device, it would have taken him a month and a half to travel back home, and he would definitely not have earned so much Yuan Force on the road, and he might not even be able to maintain daily expenses. Should we follow the procedure? Lin Chao asked Tao Yu. Let's follow the procedure. Come on, kitty, stop playing dead. Do you have the money to spare your life, or will you trade information? Tao Yu went about the formalities as usual. He had extracted something out of each of the previous captures. Having such a high bounty on her head, although this little cat girl seemed sweet and cute, she had killed numerous people, and her sweet appearance itself was a weapon for assassination. According to the wanted information, she was also a member of an unrecognized assassin organization by the company. That shady assassin organization, whose main business was assassinating pioneers, existed for a reason, and the fact it continued to operate without being eradicated also had its rationale. Just like a few of the organizations resisting the company, Tao Yu suspected that it was someone within the company's own front. Stop trying to get information from me. I just ask for a quick end, please don't torture me, Anan pleaded, still hanging by the back of her neck, but speaking in a delicate voice. It was like hearing a kitten's paw scraping. Your record says that your peak achievement was killing a senior partner in bed, so stop putting on a show for us, Tao Yu said, as he shook her slightly, causing a wave of numbness throughout Annan's body. After recovering, she huffed in annoyance. Spilled everything, without any consideration for my privacy. Why don't you just blow up the company while you're at it? Then Tao Yu grabbed Annan and pulled her in front of Lin Chao, pointing at Lin Chao's face and said. I don't know if you recognize him, but his name is Lin Chao, the super nice guy from Chaoyang Society. You don't seem like a lost cause, so if the information you provide is valuable enough to save your life, there really is a chance. Those others who were captured lately, did you give them a chance too? Annan, being an old hand, rolled her eyes. She had heard the recent rumors and went into hiding right away, but who would have thought they would find her in such a remote place, damn it all. There must have been something off about that noise earlier, but knowing now is too little, too late. They didn't provide enough value. Repeated Tao Yu, the same line he had said several times before. However, it did make Annan fall silent for a moment. I have some information relevant to Chaoyang Society. I'm not asking you to let me go, but I'll give you 20,000 Yuan Force, hoping you can deliver it to my father. You can take a cut, but I hope you'll leave some for him. The clout of Chaoyang Society's Lin Chao certainly had an effect, softening Annan somewhat. The Chaoyang Society's reputation was quite good, helping others was a tag they proudly bore. The act of their leader beating up the head of the Longzi clan, while it did cause some backlash from other families, also won them quite a few fans. Tao Yu just pondered for a moment before saying. If your information is useful, it's not impossible. Even if it's not, I can still agree to take half. Though by definition, Annan certainly wasn't a good person, Tao Yu could understand her desire to leave some money for her family in times of trouble. Some people are currently recruiting those of us with bounties, planning to launch an attack on Chaoyang Society. I don't know the specifics, I'm too scared they're just trying to scam the bounty. But I did run into someone who'd been recruited at the Thieves Guild not long ago, and it seemed legit. Annan's words made Tao Yu's expression turn a bit strange, and he glanced at Lin Chao. Good grief, the head of Chaoyang Society had attracted quite a bit of hatred. Tao Yu, having been helped by Lin Chao these past few days, said to him as a favor. I have no objections, when the time comes, the money will be yours, and how much you give is up to you. Lin Chao felt somewhat heavy-hearted at hearing this but still nodded. Seeing that she had finished sharing the information and that Tao Yu was willing to transfer all 20,000 Yuan Force to this person from Chaoyang Society, Annan could roughly judge that their previous words were indeed no deception, and after obediently transferring 20,000 Yuan Force to Lin Chao's card, she cautiously said. Is there really no chance you could let me go? I have implanted a special ability that allows me to absorb automatically, guaranteeing you a mind-blowing experience, always at your beck and call. Smack! Tao Yu's slap landed on her backside, making her tail stand on end. Don't push your luck. This person's route back to the abyss was blocked, and sooner or later, she was bound to either go mad or get captured. Tao Yu's words caused Annan's spirit to deflate, her tail and ears drooping. Then the two of them grabbed her and walked towards the nearest place where they could turn in the mission. However, just as Tao Yu was about to leave the alley, he suddenly frowned and looked back. There, a figure wearing a partner's cloak was walking towards them from 100 meters back. Oh, I just heard some ghastly yelling and turned out it's really Annan, whom I've been looking for quite a while. I heard that there was a new player who had found a way to track people by sound, seems like it wasn't just a rumor. But this 8-armed Vajra nickname doesn't seem to quite fit. The cloaked figure with the masked face took each step as if it were measured with a ruler, the rhythm and stride not changing in the slightest. Chapter 280, Still think you can take me down in seconds? Oh? You want to snatch the task? That's quite interesting. Tao Yu encountered this situation for the first time and, instead, a hint of intrigue appeared on his face. Having guessed his identity and hearing of his battle achievements, yet still daring to do so, this guy was definitely a senior partner. Perhaps there was another bonus in store. However, it might have been the change in Tao Yu's expression that caused the speaker to switch gears quite quickly. No, not snatching the task. Both of you could capture Annan alive, which means your strength is substantial, no matter the methods you used. I'm not looking for your trouble. Mission work isn't all about fighting and killing. But since it's a capture alive, I know of a place where we could sell him for a better price. How about we sell him there? Just give me a little share of the extra profit, and we can work together more in the future. There are more and more competitors these days, it's tough to get by. Tao Yu didn't say much and he just picked up Anan and held him up. Bring 200,000 Yuan Force, and I'll give him to you directly. I don't have that much Yuan Force on me. The person halted mid-sentence, then continued. How much do you have? Tao Yu wasn't picky about the amount. You expect me to hand over the Yuan Force and then you'll attack me? The tone of that mysterious partner had already become somewhat threatening. Because of the high degree of overlap in the tasks, he had intended to get a better understanding of this 8-armed Vajra. Someone who could even capture those with mechanical augmentations alive very likely possessed an impressive level of spiritual cultivation and corresponding tactics. However, although his own meditation technique had not broken through the shackles, it had also been piled up to LV5, achieving a unified defense that was more than sufficient. The pie was only so big, and he actually had the intention of probing since the encounter, but the other party just got in his face directly. Not giving any face at all. How excessive! Without even the trust to provide a down payment, why should we trust you and follow you? Two choices, either leave immediately or don't leave at all. Here in the 4th-tier security district, Tao Yu's attitude was exceedingly assertive. I choose the third option. Before the other party could react, Tao Yu released Anan, handing him over to Lin Chao standing nearby for watch. His entire being accelerated instantly, and just as Lin Chao warned with a careful, Tao Yu rushed towards the other. The sudden burst of speed from Tao Yu obviously startled the man. So fast! But even faster were the nearly instantaneous cowboy-style double draw and fire movements. Bang bang bang! A succession of bullets whistled towards Tao Yu, curving through the air and blocking all paths of retreat. This one move alone exhibited a miraculously deft use of a firearm. However, Tao Yu didn't seem to have any intention of dodging and simply brute-forced his way through head-on. Boom! The first bullet exploded upon hitting Tao Yu's indestructible Vajra divine skill, taking Tao Yu by surprise. Although it was an explosion, the penetration power was so strong. Special bullets. Boom! The flashes of fire smoothly deflected off the barrier of qi around Tao Yu's body, striking a roll-up door diagonally behind him and warping it with the force of the explosion. Dense bombardments followed, hitting Tao Yu's qi barrier. Yet with each explosion, with each bombardment, Tao Yu easily burst through the smoke and flames. The surrounding walls, windows, doors, and even the ground were continuously shattered by the blast's deflected shockwaves. Peeling away the paint, debris flew in all directions. But Tao Yu, the intended target, seemed utterly unaffected. This caused the mysterious partner who had fired the shots to change his expression. While employing battle techniques for swift backpedaling amidst a sudden flash of blue light, he still kept firing relentlessly. Die! As another bullet struck Tao Yu, it caused him, who'd already had his fingers on a pebble, to pause slightly. A mental attack? And a strong one at that, not much weaker than the spirit stinger used by Master Wang. Interesting, completely separating a single thought of one's own, then imbuing it into the bullet in advance to craft it. Tao Yu began to surmise the nature of his opponent's attack. The bullet carried a purely spiritual attack and was not connected to the opponent in any way. Its ruthless explosive damage did not cause any backlash, which was quite an ingenious method. The enemy's spiritual cultivation couldn't hold a candle to Master Wang's, and Tao Yu's spirit perception wasn't obscured in the slightest by it. So, the enemy must have spent a considerable amount of time crafting these bullets in advance. Tao Yu picked up his pace again after stashing away the pebble. Under the wildly changing expressions of his opponent, Tao Yu unleashed a spirit stinger. Even though the opponent had a decent level of spiritual cultivation, he grunted when Tao Yu struck him. Then he was further immobilized by Tao Yu's flicking flower finger sealing his acupoints. You've mastered both Fortress and Vajra, hey. Indeed, a high-level partner. Who are you? As Tao Yu sealed the opponent's acupoints with flicking flower finger, he could feel the resistance from the two sets of battle techniques, which were the convenient methods used by qi-based pioneers to withstand bullets. Usually, only high-level partners could master two at the same time and sustain the associated energy drain. These skills were generally not cost-effective compared to mastering one and combining it with protective gear, but high-level partners had to pass bulletproof assessments without armor. Battle techniques can be quite diverse, too bad they conflict with physical force. Tao Yu looked at the immobile partner, stiffened in place by the spiritual attack and a cup ointment seal, and promptly lifted off his mask. A very ordinary middle-aged face appeared, marked by a look of terror. He didn't match any of the high-level partners Tao Yu knew from the information on hand, so Tao Yu also stripped off his cape and examined his handgun to check for any hidden tricks. It was high-end merchandise, more expensive than an AT-200, and the bullets weren't cheap either. If it weren't for the integration of Vajra indestructibility into his great shift of Kyunkan through deification, he might have had to activate either demonization or innate time control. After confirming there were no hidden dangers, Tao Yu pocketed the gun right in front of the man. Seems like the gun was additionally modified on top of its basic model, quite a natural fit in hand. Do you guys know who he is? His battle techniques are pretty good, stronger than Anand's. With Fortress and Vajra, he must be a high-level partner, Tao Yu inquired, looking at Lin Chao who was approaching with Anand. He should be Lethal Bullet, a lone high-level partner who likes to catch some easy mid-level partners. He has tracked me several times, haha, even you have your day. Anand said, her face showing delight in the misfortune of others. Seeing Lethal Bullet subdued by Tao Yu's swift actions, Anand felt a sense of balance restored. Yet, while feeling internally balanced, she was also incredibly shocked. This was a high-level partner. What on earth are you? For a moment, she felt like her own capture wasn't such a big deal after all. She still had value, they probably wouldn't kill her without offering a chance. If she could complete a few fodder missions, there was even a possibility of surviving. You've captured a high-level partner. You can sell him on the black market. I know the place, he probably wanted to sell me there too. Just don't sell me, okay? If you get sold there, you're really going to die, Anand frantically pleaded, causing Lethal Bullet's face to turn bitter. It's a misunderstanding, you two. I just came to ask around, didn't really want to start anything, Lethal Bullet said as Tao Yu searched him for any explosives, pocketing small Yuan Force items he found while chuckling coldly. I don't care whether you want to fight. I do what I want, Tao Yu retorted, causing Lethal Bullet to falter in speech and glance around nervously. As a partner who often undertook missions, he knew too well the unwritten rules of such places. Disappearances were all too common here. Having rendered the other speechless, Tao Yu scoffed again. He has intuition as a talent. Do you think we couldn't sense your hostility before? At Tao Yu's words, Lethal Bullet exhibited a constipated expression. He definitely felt discontent and hostility since his potential bounty was snatched right before his eyes. But that was just a thought. This was seriously unfair. With intuition providing support, and such formidable strength, he was really unlucky. And disguising his age, specifically presenting a younger face to others. It's no wonder he was caught off guard. Lethal Bullet, as a high-level partner, was considered quite steady. He first confirmed the appearance of the two, not recognizing them from any hero rankings, then noted their youth. They had considerable strength, but he believed he was stronger, hence his confidence. Even if he misjudged, as a high-level partner, he could apologize and that would be the end of it. Surely a simple probe wasn't the same as a death sentence, right? It's not like they could take him down instantly, could they? Well, he was now taken down just like that. Chapter 281, Value. Don't sell me, I belong to a guild, you won't be able to sell me in the black market because no one will dare to take me, I'm an advanced partner. Lethal Bullet pleaded in a soft tone. Are you threatening me? Tao Yu cocked his head and glanced at him. No, how could I? My life is in your hands, sir, I just don't want to lose face in the black market. Tao Yu turned to look at Anand beside him. Is that so? This is beyond my knowledge, I've never captured an advanced partner. Anand also dared not lie, otherwise, if he really couldn't sell the other and then, angered, accidentally sold himself, what would he do? If he got caught because there was a bounty on his head, he still had a chance to survive, but being sold on the black market would truly be the end of him. It's true, absolutely true, I'm willing to compensate you, sir. Lethal Bullet kept speaking, and his words gradually softened Tao Yu's expression. How much? I have a total of 230,000 Yuan Force on me right now, I'm willing to give it all to you, sir, and I don't need my equipment either. Lethal Bullet's expression turned bitter. He genuinely and earnestly sought to save his life. Normally, it's rare for pioneers who have been captured to be willing to pay. After paying money and having already made enemies, they might as well just be killed and be done with it. Giving money to murderers and enemies, no one wanted to do that. It's generally just a deception for naive youngsters. But the atmosphere at the moment was a little sensitive because he was truly yielding, and although the place was remote, it wasn't completely deserted, there was a chance for mediation. Sir, being willing to give Yuan Force after being caught shows a lot of sincerity. I truly did not know who you were, and from now on, whatever you command, I'll be at your beck and call. I wouldn't dare trouble you again, sir, what if I got caught again? Lethal Bullet was appealing to emotions and reasoning. And Tao Yu fell into thought, then a smile appeared on his face. Oh no, since it's just a misunderstanding, let's just clear it up. Since you have only 230,000, keep 1,000 for food, and give me 229,000. Tao Yu held out his magnetic card and released the A-cup ointment in the other's arm, and Lethal Bullet, without any hesitation, transferred the Yuan Force, all the while expressing his thanks. Thank you for your mercy, sir, for leaving me 1,000. Otherwise, I would have had to borrow some from a loan shark. How about I lend you another 100,000? A good deal, you repay 13 for 10 borrowed, just consider it as being robbed by me. Tao Yu's eyes shone slightly, making Lethal Bullet wish he could smack his own mouth. Haha, just kidding, relax your mind, I'm going to install a safety measure. Tao Yu said to Lethal Bullet with a grin, causing a slight change in the other's expression. Don't worry, you're quite good at meditation technique yourself, so you should be able to judge when the time comes. I'm just going to ensure you won't become my enemy. If you entertain such a thought, or try to dispel the seed I'm planting, it will detonate as a warning. It won't kill you, it's just a warning to me. The next time I see you, if the seed is gone, then I'll know. Tao Yu was quite sincere, leaving Lethal Bullet no choice but to sigh helplessly. He didn't know what Tao Yu was planning to use, but since it involved mental power, it was definitely something quite dangerous. But at this point, with himself lying on the chopping block and at the mercy of others, wanting to stay alive meant having no choice but to follow Tao Yu's words and relax his mind. Because of Lethal Bullet's accomplishment in mental training, Tao Yu specially concocted a mental seed and implanted it into the other's mind. First, he used Spiritual Thorn's modifying ability to morph it into something akin to an anchor to secure it firmly, then he used Soul Transfer to inscribe the corresponding rules, and finally, with his fist intention, he infused the Big Dipper's deathly intent. Although the other's mental training was high, if he violated the rules, even if he didn't die, he would still suffer great harm. However, precisely because of the other's high level of mental cultivation, Tao Yu couldn't simply plant a taming technique seed, he had to be a little more crude. Otherwise, he really might end up with another laborer. Now, he could only begrudgingly be considered an informant. You can't remove it yourself, make sure communications are clear, leave me a message each month in the mission hall, rest assured, I'll only occasionally want some information, there's no intention of squeezing you dry. Tao Yu's words caused Lethal Bullet to nod woodenly. His mental cultivation wasn't weak, he could vaguely sense the threat that this seed posed to him. It was bizarrely located in his most core area, even if a meditation master were to help, it would probably be meaningless. If what the other party said was true, then it wasn't unacceptable. After all, he had survived. Come, let's add each other as friends. Tao Yu extended his wristwatch to add a private channel with the other party. Inner-city pioneers rarely had communication chips, usually, a radio was enough, or a phone line could be installed at home. But advanced partners clearly weren't included in this category. This is my partner code, remember to leave a message on time in the mission hall. Tao Yu didn't hide his identity, as he had not worn a mask to conceal his face when he went out to investigate this mission. It would be easy for the other party to inquire if they wanted to as an advanced partner. Better to be straightforward. New pioneers? Development zone. Lethal Bullet looked at the numbers in the partner code, grasped the meaning behind several key numbers, and his face was full of shock. How is this possible? A big shot from Floating City. I'm an advanced partner, after all. Nothing is impossible. Tao Yu spoke in a calm tone, this was about the limit of power he could display at the moment. Previously, it all depended on the divine skill of Vajra indestructibility, but once the teaching of inner strength began, it would naturally become clear what this was. The advancement in his own strength and the acquisition of resources would all seem normal. And if Lethal Bullet did have ulterior motives, bearing the severe injury from triggering the explosion to contact somebody else or his union to deal with him. Even without considering the little rich lady, his own remaining strength was sufficient to give them a surprise. But at present, this possibility also seemed very small. As a mature advanced partner, Lethal Bullet knew how to weigh pros and cons. By his looks, he seemed far from anything insane. Were you planning to sell Annan to the black market before? After resolving the issue, Tao Yu also released the pressure points of Lethal Bullet House and put on his own partner mask. He was 8-armed Vajra after all. It's not really like that, the black market is disgustingly filthy, I don't like it either. However, lately, a few inner-city families are gathering these desperate outlaws. I sold a couple before, and the price could go up by 20%. Anyway, I have no use for the points now. House expressed indifferently, which made Tao Yu's eyes slightly move. It's this again. I understand, hand over your partner badge to me, go get a replacement for yourself. Ah. House looked somewhat bewildered but still took out his partner badge and gave it to Tao Yu. The badge for advanced partners was much more finely made. House's badge had a pistol symbol, similar to the 2 guns Tao Yu had confiscated, which was probably a privilege for advanced partners to customize. Alright, that will do, sometimes I might use your identity to handle some matters, don't worry, it's nothing unforgivable, you just need to be a little more prudent. Since Tao Yu had said so, House naturally didn't dare to complain, and in the end, could only leave dejectedly, wishing to get as far away as possible. Chapter 282, Return to the Abyss. Huff. Annan exhaled in relief when he saw that he had at last handed himself over to the Night Watcher. They were still very particular about their principles. Your share of the money, I'll transfer it, Lin Chao spoke with meticulous care to Annan. Make a clean break with the past, and strive to come out alive. Such sincerity touched Annan a bit, even though it was they who had captured him. But with the abyss being blocked, compromise was just a matter of time. Either he would go mad and start killing, to be executed on the spot, or he would have to willingly walk into the trap. She had even considered letting her father capture her to collect the reward but feared getting killed by others on the way there. Thank you, once I get out, I promise to make you ecstatic. Annan blew Lin Chao a kiss, then obediently put on the shackles and followed the staff member away. Later, they would assign her different cannon fodder tasks according to the severity of her misdeeds. Should she complete them, she would earn her freedom. With Annan's strength, it was absolutely worth controlling her with some implanted explosives, and although the cannon fodder tasks had a high mortality rate, the company had indeed always kept its promises so far. If she refused to cooperate, they might just dismantle her for organ sales. The money from the bounty couldn't be lost, after all. The choice was, in fact, quite simple. I'll go and deliver the money for her. Yeah, I'll come with you, and then I'll take you back home afterward, Tao Yu said to Lin Chao. He was responsible for bringing the person out, so of course, he had to deliver her back unharmed. Both Annan and House seemed to have heard this news, perhaps they were almost ready to take action. Lin Chao's intuition was probably a thorn in their side. Thanks, I still need to discuss this with the society chairman, Sai, there indeed seems to be trouble this time. Lin Chao said, appearing somewhat uneasy. He then followed Annan's address and delivered a sum of money to her father. Lin Chao kept none of it for himself, and Tao Yu let him do as planned. His character was such, and nothing could be done about it. However, as they were preparing to leave the city, the ground suddenly began to tremble slightly. But Tao Yu and Lin Chao both turned to look toward the distant sky at the same time. Roar! A roar rang out, and a 30-jong long dragon soared across the sky, emitting a furious roar. The dragon was entirely black, with a fierce appearance, and its skin seemed to be covered with iron armor in many vital areas. Above the dragon's head, one eye bore a scar, making it look even more ferocious. That dragon's chant could chill one's heart across several streets, involuntarily evoking a sense of dread. Many passers-by's faces changed and they quickly sought cover. Some even cried out in shock. It's the supreme elder of the Longzi clan. Only he could achieve this. How is this possible? What's happening? Then came an angry bellow from the dragon in the sky. Gu Qiu! How dare you attack us openly in the inner city? At this, Lin Chao also exclaimed. The chairman. Tao Yu was also stunned. Was that Gu Qiu the chairman of the Chaoyang Society? Damn, is he that fierce? Haha, you amass bountied criminals, collude with heretic god followers. Your Longzi clan deserves to die. A domineering voice actually overpowered the dragon's chant. You. However, before the dragon could react further, a cold snort came from above. A streak of light shot out from the base of the floating city, instantly pressing the dragon down and causing the ground to vibrate. Thereafter, transparent walls descended from the sky, completely sealing off the area, and no more sounds could be heard. It's the inspector of the floating city. Within the inner city, using attacks beyond a certain range is prohibited. That supreme elder has crossed the line. Lin Chao whispered to Tao Yu, excitement evident in his eyes. It's the sect hierarch, he already knows, haha, the sect hierarch is right, when it comes to evil, we should strike proactively and hit them hard. Lin Chao had always been a little fanboy of the Chaoyang Society's sect hierarch, often quoting him in conversation. Although they only heard a voice from afar this time, they could somewhat discern the other party's strength. Even though the dragon had not displayed much power, its sheer size alone made it a formidable opponent. The sect hierarch of Chaoyang Society attacked their stronghold directly, his strength must be even greater. This must be the ceiling of the inner city. These old immortals have accumulated a lot of power indeed. But Gu Chu seems rather young, even younger than my parents. Tao Yu felt somewhat sentimental. For now, it seemed the sect hierarch of Chaoyang Society had temporarily resolved the issue, but whether he could ultimately settle it was still uncertain. If the Longzi clan truly had nothing to do with the heretic god followers, then it might be difficult to take them down at once. When it comes to some bounty-wanted criminals, that would not be a fatal problem. Now it's Chaoyang Society that has provoked universal anger. I'm afraid the other clans in the inner city will protect the Longzi clan instead of coveting their market share. In theory, the Longzi clan also had competitors in the inner city. Even if they didn't, if they encountered troubles on a normal day, there would be many who would kick them while they were down. But the situation becomes different when it's tied to Chaoyang Society. Given Chaoyang Society's current stance, these are their enemies. Today it could be the Longzi clan, and tomorrow it might be the next one. This is different from those who took over and became our own people. Be sure to stay safe after I leave. Safety comes first, understand? That's what Tao Yu reminded his family when he was getting ready to leave. Since they had already familiarized themselves with the basic Shaolin breathing technique, and with their third brother teaching them hand by hand using the meridian chart, by the time he returned, they had already mastered the basics of the meridians. So this time, he had completed teaching them the muscle-changing and bone-forging scripture. Once they had the muscle-changing and bone-forging scripture down, the next time he came back, he could teach them the fundamental heart method. They were currently practicing the basic Shaolin breathing technique, and transitioning to the muscle-tendon changing classic wouldn't be a problem. The initiation of the muscle-tendon changing classic is simpler than that of the 9 Yin True Scriptures Big Dipper. Tao Shi, pay attention these days. The situation with Chaoyang Society is a bit delicate, you better just stay home. Safety comes first. Tao Yu also made a special point to warn Tao Shi. The current turmoil wasn't going to settle down easily. I know. It won't cause trouble for you all. I'll stay home and cultivate for the time being, and I should be awakening in another year. Tao Shi, though wild on normal days, solemnly agreed this time. After making all the arrangements, Tao Yu also returned to his room, folding the personal flying machine he had custom-made and carried back as a backpack. Then, he sat cross-legged on his bed. He wondered where they had reached now, hoping he could catch up if he set out now. When Tao Yu opened his eyes again, he was already in the chamber of the Ming cult where he had been before he left. It was evident that even though more than a month had passed, the chamber was still clean, probably cleaned daily. Tao Yu, carrying the folded flying machine, opened the door and saw 2 beautiful maids waiting at the entrance. Upon seeing Tao Yu emerge, they first expressed surprise, then bowed excitedly. Congratulations to the sect hierarch for coming out of seclusion. Where is Shizuoshi? Call him to see me. He just wanted a brief update on any new intelligence from the nearby Bright Summit. If there was nothing major, he would head out to chase after the main force. Chapter 283. Xiang Yang. Everything is normal, they all took pigeons from Bright Summit when they left, and several factions have already reached agreements. Yang Xiao scurried through the secret passage to report in person, which made Shizuoshi pull a long face, feeling as if his role had been usurped. Besides Yang Xiao, the stand-in sect hierarch Zhang Wuji and Xiao Zhao were also present, and they hadn't followed the 6 major factions when they set off. After all, he was now the hierarch of the Ming cult, and he had responsibilities to shoulder. Tao Yu had already learned from Shizuoji that Zhang Wuji dealt with various sect affairs every day. Fortunately, with Xiao Zhao by his side, it wasn't too distressing. From Zhao Min's words, we know that the experts of Tiju are far superior to those in our world, and their power structure is higher, so let's continue to focus on defense and caution. Once I have resolved the Titan issue, I will bring people over to support, I'll visit in person then. Tao Yu also gave some instructions to Yang Xiao and Shizuoshi, mainly focusing on intelligence gathering. Explore more adventures at Empire. Martial sovereign Bai Xian was merely a war god of the eastern Tiju, and the number of skilled martial artists the Tiju could boast was quite limited. The population-based disparity was simply too great. Given the capabilities of the Great Tang world, Tao Yu felt his special effects and art style would be more prominent. He would definitely be a formidable expert if he went there, but his exact level would probably only be known after actually fighting. The most memorable impression in Tao Yu's mind from the legend of the double dragons of the Great Tang was when Dugu Ba casually stepped 8 zhang in the snow while abducting Shen Luoyan. Judging purely by lightness skills for travel, he was now at about that level. Even though Dugu Ba was one of the few top masters of the Dugu faction, capable of subduing Shen Luoyan within a few moves and considered a top expert in Great Tang, Tao Yu thought he should still be much stronger than that despicable lecher. Empress Yin's Jade Annihilation, which could cover a football field, also seemed a bit exaggerated. Shi's Hixuan, on the other hand, managed to escape from such an attack with mere injuries, making Tao Yu feel that he would probably need his inherent time control combined with shadow jumping to do the same. But fortunately, he didn't need to worry too much about that situation for the time being, as everyone had their own messes to deal with. Wuji. Tao, please speak. Zhang Wuji remained very open-minded, even though he was now the sect hierarch. In general, he still preferred to take life as it came. You are now the most powerful person in the Central Plains martial world, but remember, do not engage needlessly with the experts of Tiju. Just protect Bright Summit, that's all. Alright, I will not leave. The life here is actually quite nice. Zhang Wuji actually preferred tranquility. In the original story, he was always like a duck being forced to perch, preferring to stay in one place for an extended time since the Ice and Fire Island episode. Wudang Mountain, Butterfly Valley, Zhu Changling's home, under the cliff. All these places were the same, staying in Bright Summit really put no pressure on him at all. Then that settles it, I'll be going now. Farewell, Sect Hierarch. Tao, may the wind be at your back. Young Master Tao, may the wind be at your back. The several people who saw him off, as well as others stationed at Bright Summit, were astounded as they watched Tao Yu assemble his folding flying machine. The large DJI had a large cage attached below, which looked somewhat comical, but it was functional, after all. Sitting inside, Tao Yu started the buzzing flying vehicle and then headed straight in the direction of the Central Plains. With 2 spare batteries, he had enough range. The onlookers at Bright Summit, as well as those in the defense, were left stunned by the sight of Tao Yu flying away. No matter how ugly the flying machine was, in their eyes, it was still flight. Young Master Tao can really fly, Xiao Zhao said with excitement, full of liveliness. Beside her, Zhang Wuji also showed a hint of emotion. Yes, Tao always brings new surprises every time. Xiangyang, a stronghold guarding the gateway of the southern Song, had been actively responding ever since the armies of the plains had withdrawn and rumors of the Titans had spread. With food transported from the south, the refugees that came were put to work, digging various traps to contend with the Titans. The nearby forests had been nearly cleared of trees. As the dry season of the Yellow River began and the Titans gradually moved southward, more specific intelligence concerning the Titans continued to arrive. The weaknesses of the Titans had been communicated to them by the people of the training corps. Yet even so, after the martial arts conference, Guo Jing personally led several attempts to repel the enemy north of Xiangyang City, all ending in failure. Although they managed to eliminate many Titans, delaying their advance somewhat, they could not be stopped. The creatures knew no fatigue, marching day and night, and were simply too troublesome. The only option was to shelter the refugees nearby as much as possible and then escort them southward. However, fortunately, while the imperial court did not send much military support, for the time being, a steady supply of stored grain continued to arrive in Xiangyang, preventing a food shortage. With the arrival and entrapment-based killing of the first Titan outside Xiangyang City, the spirited defense of Xiangyang officially began. The height of the Titans, over 10 meters tall, already surpassed the walls of Xiangyang City. The bizarre smiles and idiotic expressions on the Titans' faces, even when viewed from afar atop the city walls, were enough to unnerve any onlooker. "Thank you, valiant warriors, for your heroic support." Guojing stood atop the towering walls of Xiangyang City, more than 30 feet high, and expressed his gratitude to the masters of the 6 major factions led by Zhao Min with a bow. Now, Guojing's demeanor had grown much more composed. Hunting the Titans to the north caused him to break through consecutively, and simply standing there, he exuded a substantial presence. Chapter 284. And Guojing, who had never used weapons before, now had 2 Remingtons crossed on his back, several grenades hanging at his waist, and was wearing a bulletproof vest. His look was somewhat out of place in this era. Not just Guojing, but many nearby, including Huang Yaoshi, were dressed similarly. While Canada's arms aren't as rampant as Big Beautiful's, Alaska does have a military base belonging to Big Beautiful. This was considered the first batch of arms that had been transported back. If it wasn't for the 100-meter cliff, perhaps even more could have been brought back. Guo Dexia's legend is something this young lady has heard about since childhood, and it has always been lamentable that our grasslands have been at odds with such great heroes like yourself. Now that we can fight side by side, it is an honor for this young lady. Zhao Min said with a graceful smile, bowing respectfully to Guojing. Though Cheng Lixue was the decision-maker in the team, this foolish female knight, even with the assistance of Yang Guo and Armin, was at a disadvantage when facing Zhao Min. If it weren't for Tao Yu's mental seeds controlling them, they might have even been overthrown. As they headed south, not only were the 4,000 grassland cavalry obedient, but members of the 5 Elements banner and the 6 major sects, who were secretly embedded, also began to see Zhao Min in a new light. This little enchantress proved to be surprisingly reliable when she was one of their own. Amitabha, it is an honor for this old monk to witness Guo Dexia and Huang Niangzi, Kong Ji said, representing the high-level practitioners of the 6 major sects with his greeting. Their sudden arrival with troops, facilitated by Cheng Lixue and Yang Guo, did not lead to any misunderstandings. But these descendants from 100 years later were indeed causing even the martial artists of the divine sculpture era to be momentarily lost in thought. Fortunately, with the Titans, Abyss and Deep Abyss already appearing, their capacity for acceptance was quite strong. "Master, you flatter us. Our worlds are now connected, hence, there is no need to maintain such a viewpoint. Let each person be assessed on their own merits," Guojing said, still demonstrating profound humility. His values prevented him from treating these older generations as if they were his juniors. Even after learning from them that he would ultimately die in battle at Xiangyang, he felt no regret, only concern for his wife and children bearing burdens. Compared to the original course of history, the calamity of the Titans now seemed to be a more significant nuisance. "Uncle Guo, are these what you call guns? How effective are they against Titans?" Yang Guo inquired with curiosity at his side. He had been quite excited throughout the journey. Following his mother's teachings, Yang Guo had always aimed to become a great hero, and nothing had changed thus far. And according to these people from 100 years later, he himself was the famous divine sculpture hero, rooting out evil and ensuring peace. Yes, these firearms are guns, but currently, only those sniper rifles can penetrate a Titan's neck directly and kill it. Other firearms still require hitting the back of the neck from behind. These weapons are easy to use and powerful, it's best if everyone is equipped with one, if possible, but be economical with the ammunition, Guojing explained as he took out his 2 guns and provided a simple demonstration. While Guojing's dragon-subduing palms were mightily powerful, external attacks could not match the range of firearms, and the expenditure was substantial. With his profound inner strength, striking from a distance could not exceed 200 meters, unlike Zhang Wuji, who had reached the ultimate state of the 9 Yang divine skill and had an inexhaustible inner strength. Now that he had guns, it filled the gap in long-range combat. Coupled with a bulletproof vest to prevent sneak attacks, his overall combat capability had increased rapidly. The average physical condition of martial artists made them particularly adept at mastering firearms. Huang Yaoshi, for example, carried a beret, especially for dealing with aberrants. Dharma Master Yideng, Old Naughty Boy, and others who had already arrived were also armed with their respective weapons, and Chu Qunren was even holding a Gatling gun, which paired with his monkish appearance added a touch of humor. Just as Guojing and the reinforcements who had traveled a long distance to help were discussing the situation, 7 or 8 oddly shaped martial artists in the crowd were also looking a bit somber. After going back to confirm, someone had already completed the Chosen One's mission meant for Guojing, which was quite frustrating. We got nothing out of it. The guy up front is inhuman, he spilled all the beans. We had no way to trade information for better treatment, and they are still so cautious around us. They must have spoken ill of the pioneers. Ah, a step ahead is always a step ahead, there's nothing we can do, the quest for information related to inner strength is gone. Damn it! Several people were quietly sighing in frustration here. They were a team that had specifically formed after hearing that powerful natives had been encountered in the northern country, 8 inner-city pioneers. Among the 8, 4 were elite mid-level partners, with the 2 strongest comparable to seasoned mid-level elites. Their strength was notable. In the eyes of the big shots, they were recognized figures, and the 2 leading them were descendants of inner-city noble families. One of the families even had one of the 7 great inner-city kings of the new development zone at its helm. It could be said that the team before them could already be considered the superstar group of the current development zone, not much inferior to the Brew team that wanted to cause trouble for Dharma back then. And in terms of background, even higher. That's precisely why they dared to undertake such a daunting task of world pioneering, which was clearly no simple matter. When they encountered those martial artists along the way, who soared back and forth, they didn't choose to confront them head-on like the others, but instead tried to blend in and follow along. But they found out all the good stuff was gone. Truly, not a single drop left. Ah, I hope we can learn a few skills for free, can't just come here for nothing. Boss, was there any word from the big shots when we went back? Someone began to ask with a bit of hope. The task and benefits were directly handled by the 2 from the Suns. Although we don't know exactly who did it, Shaolin monks and Xuanzhen Taoists who have taken on coaching roles have already entered the northern country and started moving south. I guess by the time we return, the teaching gyms will have opened up. A man without any signs of foreign implants or mechanical modifications, with a pale, beardless face, also let out a sigh, his words tinged with resentment. Is it easy for us? Traveling long distances, riding motorcycles across 2 countries, thousands of miles and even crossing the sea, and in the end, we got nothing. But we definitely have to learn the skills, it's just a pity we still don't know which of their inner strengths are better. It's a headache. We want to learn from Guo Jing, but the man simply doesn't have the time to deal with us. Should we use some tactics? I think we can. Where do we have the time to waste with them? Also, we don't know if those guys who came over are still here, and if they still have any good stuff. Let's assess their strength first, we can try probing. With the big shots and several senior partners not here, what team in the new development zone can compare with us? Could the other side have connections with some big shot? This time the reward isn't small, is it? Do big shots intend to protect them for a lifetime just for completing a task? After the benefits are given, it's a done deal with the payment. As if we don't have our own backers. The group spoke in the common tongue, not fearing others might understand, they were practically conspiring aloud. Actually, everything was still fine, but the more they talked about it, the more riled up they became. Riding off-road motorcycles, they rattled their way all the way to Alaska, climbing over hills and mountains, and then rode on the natives' boats to get here. Every day, they slept no more than 4 hours, enduring the hardships of traveling through the wind and sleeping in the open. Only they knew how bitter this journey was. They thought they had gotten an early start and that such significant efforts would have a payoff, but in the end, they didn't even catch the tail end of any benefits. Their martial hearts crumbled. But just then, several fireworks signals suddenly appeared in the sky ahead, even these pioneers blanched at the sight. It meant that fast titans were approaching, and not just one. Stay updated through Empire. Compared to the slow-witted regular titans, the fast titans were undoubtedly much more troublesome, and an assault mixed with them among the regular titans always inevitably brought certain losses. The walls of Xiangyang City were over 3 zhang, approximately 30 feet, tall and just as thick, but there were already several places with significant gaps, caused by the fast titans. Chapter 285, Non-Human. Outside Xiangyang City, numerous trenches designed specifically for titans and giant caltrops were spread all over. The gaps between the giant caltrops, made using tree trunks, were even wide enough to allow passage for horseback riders, specifically targeting titans. For the common titans, it was indeed easy to fall into such traps. The titans, with their foolish expressions, hung on these caltrops, some of which were already starting to emit steam and evaporate. Squads of cavalry weaved orderly through the gaps in these caltrops. "Aaron, don't you feel anything yet?" Uncle Tao said. "The key is with you. Astride 3 fast horses, Yangguo, Aaron, and Mikasa rushed forward to finish off the titans tripped by the barriers. I don't know either, I feel much stronger, but I really can't control the titans. Aaron was also somewhat distressed, then spurred his horse forward, using the spiral 9 shadows to land behind a trapped titan and deliver a strike. Just then, suddenly, several aberrants appeared all at once, charging quickly towards their direction. It was as if they were doing so with purpose. It's the aberrants, quite troublesome, why are there so many this time? Aaron, seeing the dust kicked up by the aberrants suddenly charging from the front, also looked serious. Soon, under the command of Armin, they quickly retreated, with several squads from the nearby cavalry dividing into small teams, weaving together a formation specifically designed to deal with fast titans, pulling ropes in an orderly fashion. However, at that moment, the sky suddenly darkened, and several giant rock fragments flew with a whooshing sound, heavily smashing into the midst of the grassland troops, stirring up clouds of dust. The entire cavalry encampment seemed to have been bombarded. The boulders tumbled along the ground, causing vibrations, and any horse or person hit along their path was either dead or injured, with blood and screams ensuing continuously. Not only did they cause significant casualties, but the key was the great blow to morale, and it also disrupted the original formation. The ropes that had been stretched out began to entangle and, in turn, affected the cavalry formation, causing Xiaomin and Armin, who were directing from behind, to change color. Order them to retreat. As expected, these titans are being controlled. Can it be believed? Is someone truly able to control the titans? Xiaomin's pretty face showed a shocked expression, and Armin felt the same. Tao Yu had always said that it was possible for the intelligent titan to control the normal titans, advising them to pay more attention to Aaron, but although Aaron had become a titan capable of crystallizing, there was no sign of him controlling the titans. Now, this abnormal encirclement and attack, coupled with the targeted stone throwing from behind, completely confirmed that these titans were being controlled. Hey! Huang Yaeshi, who had been studying the situation on the city wall, with Barrett in position, immediately aimed and pulled the trigger. Bang! The neck of an aberrant titan was severed instantly. At that moment, Guojing also leaped down, leading a group of experts as they charged forward. The inner city pioneers at the scene also looked slightly perturbed. These titans can be controlled. Unbelievable! If titans can be controlled, they'd be the perfect weapon of war. Even more useful than aliens. This intelligence should fetch a good price, right? A hint of excitement emerged on their faces. They did not go down to risk their lives and were just watching from the city wall. In fact, there were several armed martial artists on guard by their side all the time. Because Tao Yu had always claimed that the pioneers employed dirty tactics, and conflicts had occurred when martial artists were scavenging resources in Alaska and Canada, so trust was never extended to these few. Any requests from them to learn some skills were met with evasion and dismissals. Hey! Huang Yaeshi, preparing to shoot again, suddenly felt a surge of alertness and quickly floated back with a tap on the ground. Suddenly, several enlarging shards of rock, dense and numerous, smashed toward Huang Yaeshi's location. They were incredibly accurate. And the attack pattern of the shards was extraordinarily lethal in its area of effect. Several martial artists nearby instantly lost their lives to the rock fragments. A few pioneers also found themselves dodging in a rather awkward manner. Damn it, what is this, some kind of catapult? I've seen it, it's an ape titan. One of the pioneers, controlling a drone, watched the footage being sent back and a shock crossed his face. This titan, nearing 20 meters in height, was positioned behind a small hill, constantly hurling stones without showing himself. It seemed to have detected the threat of the sniper rifle. There was also a quadrupedal crawling titan constantly bringing suitable stones for it to throw. After observing stealthily and seeing Guojing and others beginning to approach, it started to turn and flee. Without a doubt, it was intelligent. So it's just a monkey. We have to catch it. Huang Yaeshi, who had come up from behind, saw the footage on their drone and immediately leaped down, rushing forward to inform Guojing and the others of the primary target this time and incidentally took down a few aberrants with gunshots. Stay tuned with Empire. Watching those martial artists move about with such ease and grace made all the pioneers' faces flush with envy. Such a desirable ability, damn it! Why were we just a step behind? That's a fortune right there. The inner city pioneer, with traces of mechanical modification on his drone controller, hammered at the nearby wall in frustration. The chosen ones, inner strength intelligence. If we could just get our hands on some methods of learning inner strength skills, we could gain even more. If inner strength doesn't conflict with our existing systems, setting up a dojo ahead of time would be like picking up money. No, we must at least try to learn inner strength. Even if we can't eat the meat, we should at least drink the soup. Their leader, a pale-faced, beardless inner-city pioneer, said with an undercurrent of dissatisfaction. We have the strength, the skills, the dynamic vision, but being just a beat too slow meant we missed everything. It's just not fair. But just then, suddenly one of the pioneers pointed to the sky. Look, a flying vehicle. At that moment, something that looked like a large drone appeared, carrying a cage and flying from afar. It seemed to have spotted the ape titan too, as it headed directly towards its direction. That's coming from even deeper within, it couldn't have eaten all the good stuff already, could it? And surely said some ill things about us. Only one person. Probably a scout. A personal flyer, looks portable, something worth a few 100,000. A person of some standing, but not someone we can't handle. The pale-faced leader watched the flying apparatus with a flicker of excitement in his eyes. This is a low-grade product that feels awful to use. Although it costs several hundred thousands, all the value is loaded onto its functionality. His brother is one of the inner city's 7 great lords of the new development zone, and their family is among the top 5 in the inner city. At the very first sight of the flying machine, he had already made several assessments. The device is somewhat practical, but too limited, with personal weight limitations, lots of other supplies cannot be carried. It isn't as ideal as it seems. Just something for getting around quickly. That the other was using this device confirmed he wasn't a novice, but it also indicated that his ceiling wasn't high. Humph, he can't possibly be a senior partner. Even if he's alone, regular senior partner, as long as we avoid being ambushed, we can stand our ground against him. The intel we gathered mentions only one, but there might be others in hiding, so let's not take any chances. Get a clear understanding first. Understood. Meanwhile, Tao Yu, who had been chilled by the breeze all the way, was now somewhat damp from the flight. People in poor health really couldn't endure being in such personal flying devices for long. But looking at the monkey below, Tao Yu also formed an impression. It had appeared in animations before, and it supposedly could command titans? It was unclear how, though. Seeing the titans pressing against the city, the pure titans trapped in pitfalls awaiting the finishing blows from long-handled weapons, and the aberrants being shot down by sniper rifles, Tao Yu realized that Aaron had not yet mastered that ability, and then locked his sights on the ape. He must know what it's about. Capture him alive. Tao Yu rapidly maneuvered the flying machine downwards, and his appearance attracted the attention of the monkey that was preparing to retreat. Unsure of what Tao Yu was, the ape titan didn't hesitate to pick up a rock brought by the cart titan and crushed it with both hands before scattering it towards Tao Yu. Such accuracy, shit! Don't damage it! Luckily, the personal flyer was small, and thanks to Tao Yu's dynamic vision and reflexes, he swerved to avoid the rocks as they whistled by. The turbulent air made the flying machine unstable, but it eventually landed safely. Upon landing, Tao Yu quickly disassembled the flying machine, turning it into a box that he then strapped to his back. Then, before another wave of rocks could land, he stepped into the spiral shadow 9-step and rapidly dodged the assault. Boom, boom, boom. Seeing the dust kicked up nearby and the pits created by the stones, Tao Yu was secretly alarmed. This guy's aim is good, and he throws with such force. I haven't even attacked you yet, and you're already hitting me? That's too much. Tao Yu lightly touched the ground and sped forward like an arrow, easily circumventing several subsequent interferences. His speed surprised Zeke so much that he could hardly believe it. What's going on? This is way too fast. On his way here, he had already seen martial artists, but most couldn't outrun a horse. Yet this one broke the mold by far. This is bad. Such swift speed and nimble footwork made Zeke think of a short person who had given him a bit of a mental shadow. Clearly, this person in front of him was much more difficult to deal with. Not even the omnidirectional mobility gear was as fast as him running directly. You're the real non-human, aren't you? And Peak, beside him in her cart titan form, immediately took on the protective role. As the second most dexterous titan after the jaw titan, Peak possessed the best endurance among the titans, capable of maintaining titan form for extended periods. Even without the world's power, she had extraordinary range. As Zeke started to fatigue after a few throws, risking the loss of his titan form at any moment, she became the last line of defense for transportation and protection. Chapter 286, Misunderstanding. Damn, the drone was shot down. The inner city pioneer who was controlling the drone watched the suddenly distorted screen and couldn't help but feel speechless. That monkey must have noticed the approach, and as a result, the scattered fragments managed to take down his own drone as well. Wasn't this a mess? Another debt to be added to his account, but we can't see the specifics now. If he can get close to that monkey, there should be a chance. Titans are strong, but they have clear weaknesses. Several pioneers debated back and forth. They were the elite explorers who had dared to venture thousands of miles to come here, among whom 4 were present from the merely over 100 who had managed to get the intermediate partnership certification in the new development zone. Each one of them was an absolute expert on their own. Knowing that a Titan's weakness lay in the back of the neck, they were all confident they could face a pure Titan one-on-one. Be it various shooting weapons or close combat attacks, as long as they could hit the vital spots, they could solve the problem. They were somewhat wary of the aberrants, but they were also confident they could handle them in a duel. Therefore, they believed that the Beast Titan was certainly doomed once someone got close to him. They just didn't know if it would unleash some new skill, and the Yuan Force items from ordinary Titans had already been enthusiastically taken back for appraisal, only to turn out to be pure junk. Tao Yu observed the Beast Titan and the Cart Titan before him. This ape alone was even bigger than Aaron's Titan. But such a sluggish reaction had no challenge for Tao Yu, especially considering that smoke was already starting to waft from its body. Its stamina was also clearly not lasting much longer. At this moment, the relatively smaller long-faced Titan rushed towards him. What an ugly creature, but it's fast, very dexterous, much like Ymir's little dwarf Titan. Tao Yu quickly analyzed. In fact, for the martial artists, this Titan was even more troublesome than Ymir's Jaws Titan. The strength of high-stature Titans was already exceptional. Looking into their eyes, it overflowed. Such beings, who traded off some of their power for dexterity, were complete killing machines for normal people. To avoid having delicate equipment on his back damaged during the combat, Tao Yu had casually tossed it aside into a muddy field on the way and suddenly accelerated once more. You can't control Titans anyway, so if you're in the way, just die. Approaching quickly and seeing the long-faced Titan swing its paw at him, Tao Yu wrapped himself entirely in a protective aura, vaguely turning into a dragon shadow, accompanied by a high-pitched dragon's chant. He charged right through. Bang! Tao Yu burst straight into the Cart Titan's mouth and out through the back of its neck, creating a cloud of blood mist. Before the controller could even see what was happening, Tao Yu's right hand, with the 9 Yin True Scriptures claw, had already extracted the spine. Feeling Yuan Force gathering above him. This sight in Zeke's eyes was utterly infuriating. Peak. Although a Titan, he was able to speak human language. But clearly, Tao Yu was unable to sympathize with someone who had lost a comrade, and in an instant, he was already under Zeke's feet. As Zeke was about to stomp down, Tao Yu, holding a spine in one hand and drawing his black iron heavy sword with the other, slashed at Zeke's leg, cutting it off and causing his enormous body to lose balance and fall. The impact on the ground created a thunderous roar, while Tao Yu leisurely made his way to the back of the neck, casually tossing aside the sword to cut off the arm that was attacking him. Then he reached out with his claw and directly stabbed in to drag Zeke out. Throughout the process, Zeke was manipulated like a puppet on strings by Tao Yu. Monkey, if you want to live, tell me how you control those Titans. Tao Yu's words caused an enraged Zeke to pause in surprise. He hadn't expected the opponent to understand his language, let alone speak it so well. Where are you from? Thud. Tao Yu gave Zeke a punch in the stomach, adding a burst of mental shock that made Zeke vomit bile and feel like his brain had been struck by a hammer. I'm asking you. Your world was torn apart by the abyss, so how many of you have fallen now? Explore new worlds at Empire. The abyss? Is it because of the abyss that we were torn apart? Zeke's reaction was strange. Holding his stomach, he knelt on the evaporating Titan's body, seeming to start regaining his composure, but his face had a hint of a strange expression. This somewhat neurotic demeanor made Tao Yu frown. Picking him up, he said. I know you can slowly recover from injuries, so don't force me to question you in an unpleasant way. Zeke looked at Tao Yu somewhat blankly, then spoke in a flat tone. I have the royal Eldian bloodline, so the Titans created from my spinal fluid can obey my orders, but other Titans can't, he said. Hearing this, Tao Yu was also stunned for a moment. He finally started to understand what piece of the puzzle he'd been missing all along. Was the reason Aaron had been unable to activate the founding titan's power that he simply couldn't activate it at all? So what now? Eat this person? Tao Yu hesitated for a moment. But quickly, he was heading towards the battlefield, carrying Zeke with him. Somehow, he'd find a way to extract the answers. By that time, Guo Jing and the others had also ridden over on their horses and noticed the silhouette Tao Yu was holding. Junior brother, what just happened? Reining in his horse, Guo Jing looked over at Tao Yu with some astonishment and asked. He too had seen Tao Yu arriving on whatever it was that had flown him there, shocked at how powerful and exotic the skills of that world were. I've captured this ape titan. He has the ability to control some of the titans, and I've always suspected that these intelligent titans could be the key to solving the titan menace. Tao Yu picked Zeke up and then let Zeke himself speak, a trace of despair in his voice. It's useless, even though I am a member of the royal Eldian family, I can only control the titans that are born from me. Only the founding titan, combined with the royal bloodline, can truly control the titans. As things stood, Zeke wasn't aware that Aaron already possessed the powers of two different titans. He had been stationed on Paradise Island to provide aid after the great earth-shaking changes, but who could have guessed that the original island was now linked to a vast continent? The Eldians within those walls had already suffered heavy losses. With guidance as if from fate, he had headed south all the way and ultimately arrived here. Forget it, take him back first. Tao Yu himself didn't know how to activate such powers, but bringing Zeke back was undoubtedly the right move for now. Looking at the remaining titans on the battlefield and the grassland soldiers who were fighting fiercely against the titans, Tao Yu expressed approval. Zhao Min had done really well, it felt like she had trained them even better. With the beast titan, the troublemaker, out of the equation, and traps set outside for the titans, not to mention increasingly experienced soldiers, this batch of titans was temporarily under control. After all, most of the titans only had the instinct to pursue humans, and with limited numbers having crossed the Yellow River in the first place, the ones that had made it to the outskirts of Xiangyang City could be dealt with. The group took Zeke and headed straight back to Xiangyang. Young Master Tao. Sect Hierarch. Truly, Immortal Tao is among the divine. Uncle Tao. Tao. Along the way, those who knew Tao Yu greeted him one after another. The sight of Tao Yu flying through the sky earlier had been witnessed by many. Originally, Tao Yu had already won the full admiration of the experts from the 6 major sects with just a few miraculous shows, and now this last display had truly pushed his esteem to its peak. Zhao Min and Cheng Lixiu both came over and stood by Tao Yu's side. While Cheng Lixiu still posed as a heroine and maintained a seemingly indifferent demeanor, Zhao Min was far more direct, hugging Tao Yu's arm and seeking praise. So? Did I do well or what? She asked with her sweet and delicate voice. Hearing Zhao Min's voice, Tao Yu nodded and acknowledged. Indeed, very well done, better than I expected. On the road back, Tao Yu had already observed the various guns carried by the martial artists, and on his return, seeing his master Huangrong with a beret, he laughed and said. Master, your weapon is definitely the most eye-catching. Haha, I think so too. Unfortunately, there are only a few of these divine sniper rifles to be found. Next time, we should get more. They pack a powerful punch and have a long range, good for both far and near, said Huangrong, obviously very content with his weapon. He could easily handle the recoil and had no problem shooting up close. And as for his disciple, Huangrong felt quite sentimental. When Tao Yu had first mastered the 9 yin true scripture, he had already surpassed Guo Jing, and Huangrong thought Guo Jing might catch up a bit by killing titans. But seeing those flatterers from the 6 major sects groveling, calling him Immortal Tao so nauseatingly, he knew his disciple must have achieved another significant advance. But just then, a smiling voice came from the side. Friend, you seem a bit unfamiliar. I wonder which family you belong to. Did you say something bad about us? I feel like you have some misunderstandings about us. Chapter 287. The Right Way. Tao Yu looked over upon hearing the words and also saw the clearly identifiable group of pioneers. In all, there were 8 of them, 3 with mechanical modifications, 3 with alien body implantations, and 2 with no visible changes, uncertain whether they followed the path of physical strength or battle chi. From the vitality of the group, all 8 were likely inner-city pioneers, and among those, they were not the weakest. As for pioneers coming over, Tao Yu did not find it strange, as Panda had told her earlier that the Canadian pioneers had already clashed with some martial world people. Continue reading on Empire. Given the peculiar fighting style of the martial world, it was natural to attract interest, so a team of elite inner-city pioneers had come directly, likely hoping for a huge windfall. Without using flying devices, relying purely on motorcycles and the like to follow the roads not completely destroyed, their speed was much faster than horses, probably spending most of the time crossing the sea and reaching Xiangyang. However, unfortunately for them, the biggest benefit had already been taken by herself, and she had continuously primed Guojing and the others with warnings about how pioneers lack restraint and to be wary of sneak attacks. Therefore, looking at their expressions, they seemed none too pleased. If they are unhappy, let them be unhappy. Tao Yu had no intention of pleasing them. I have merely stated some facts, she said. Pioneers are ruthless and don't consider the natives human, this is the norm. It's just that now, the power of the martial artists isn't weak, and you are not confident, otherwise, I don't think you would have adopted such a mild approach. Tao Yu snorted, completely indifferent to their feelings. She made a special effort to use willpower translation, sending a chill through the elites of the 6 major sects. Is this the kind of pioneer that Tao Yu spoke of? Previously, Tao Yu had told them about these pioneers engaging in all sorts of evil, claiming they would eat 3 children in one meal and act unscrupulously. If their strength had been superior, it would have been fine, but revealing any weakness might lead to being devoured by them. Initially seeing Tao Yu arrive in such high esteem, along with 2 stunningly beautiful and distinctive women at his side, the pioneers were already feeling defensive. And now, added to the previous situation of Tao Yu causing trouble, they were already suppressing their emotions. But now, Tao Yu, utterly unconcerned, openly dismissed them to their faces, which indeed made them furious with embarrassment. While it is often true that they act without scruples, this time there are martial techniques to be learned, and we would certainly choose gentle methods over forceful ones. Slander. Inversion of right and wrong. You spread lies about us for your selfish desires, causing trouble not just for us but for other pioneers as well. What do you think others will think of you? A selfish villain. One of the mechanical modification pioneers declared indignantly. What others think of me is none of my business. I've only talked about what I've seen. Tao Yu chuckled softly, then revealed a slightly wicked smile. You seem to have misunderstood the situation. No sooner had Tao Yu finished speaking than the elites of the 6 sects leapt forward. Kong Ji pointed his Zen staff towards the city wall, chanting a Buddha's name. Amitabha, it seems the visitors come with ill intent. King Golden Wheel, who had finally recovered from his injuries, also raised his Jinlun despite a pale face that bore the signs of recent illness. You dare show disrespect to Tao Yu? Do you think my Jinlun is not sharp enough? Apart from them, some of the surrounding martial artists directly made the sound of cocking their guns. Encircling the 8 pioneers, they turned pale with apprehension. What the hell? Had they kicked a hornet's nest? Watching their eyes flicker, Tao Yu simply smiled. Hold back on the sneaky thoughts, okay? I've pre-sold many of these people to the young miss, they have to be taken back when this is over, so you wouldn't want to make any major moves that could cause injuries, right? Tao Yu chose not to translate this sentence, leaving only the pioneers able to understand it. And those words turned their faces even greener. You accuse us of having no limits, yet you've sold people. Among them, there were 3 with mechanical modifications, actually carrying some wide-range destructive devices. But now, Tao Yu's words made them feel as uncomfortable as constipation. Using the natives to coerce the pioneers? The key was that they were genuinely intimidated by the threat. I know that the young miss has already arranged for the first batch of people to go south and that she has taken over, but that's no excuse for you to throw your weight around with borrowed authority. I also have the backing of big shots from the floating city. The beardless team leader, taking a deep breath, retorted. Originally, upon seeing Tao Yu alone, they wanted to verbally corner him and possibly shake out some concessions. The first mover has its advantages, and so does the challenger. Just like when Bru and his group tangled with Dada. But who could have expected that he would assert such audacity backed by the local residents? Where did this brash youth come from, showing such disrespect for the rules? Since we're not on the same page, we will take our leave, the team leader said forcefully, reining in his anger and preparing to leave. The situation was stronger than the individual. With time, location, and people all on the opponent's side, despite being 8 people, they were helpless with the locals backing the other party. Take care, and remember not to linger too long. Tao Yu waved them off with a smile. However, This only earned him a cold snort and the sight of their backs as they left. Young master, they clearly harbor resentment, you can't leave behind any future trouble. Chapter 288. Zhao Min clung to Tao Yu's arm, swinging it as she lowered her voice and said. As if you know so much. Tao Yu glanced at her sideways and flicked her smooth forehead, leaving a red mark. So many martial artists saw it, and there would be quite a few who would head south to integrate when the time comes. There's no way to shut them up, and by then, it'll be impossible to hide. The fact that the development zone can pull out such a force definitely means that there are people from Floating City behind them, and their family's influence in the inner city might not be weak either. There's no need. Tao Yu looked at the departing backs of the 8 men and smiled, then raised his voice to the many martial artists. We've successfully stopped the Titans this time, and everyone can relax a bit now. Without the Ape Titan leading them, ordinary Titans are not that frightening. Tao Yu handed Zeke over to Guo Jing. Brother-in-law, keep an eye on him first. I think the key to solving the Titan problem and its secrets may well lie with him. Locked up in the dungeon, he can't transform. All right. I'm a bit tired from the journey here, I'm going to rest for a while. Guo Jing nodded in agreement at Tao Yu's words. Junior brother, you've rushed here from the western regions, and on top of that, you fought with the Titans, so you should rest well. I'll have someone prepare your chamber right away. Thanks, brother-in-law. I'll just stay with Zhao Min tonight to make do. Tao Yu reached out and stroked Zhao Min's soft hair, eliciting teasing laughter from the rough men around, making Zhao Min's face flush with a touch of shyness. Cheng Lixiu, standing beside him, wanted to say something, but soon held back. After all, she was currently playing the role of the virtuous Lady Cheng with a husband. Wait here for me, I'll be right back, Tao Yu said. Your next chapter is on Empire. Tao Yu and Zhao Min arrived at her room, where he promptly tossed her aside, leaving Zhao Min, who had been lost in wild thoughts, momentarily stunned. Hey! Are you stupid or what? Didn't you say we shouldn't leave loose ends? Tao Yu looked at Zhao Min's blushing face with some speechlessness. Had she been influenced by being around Cheng Lixiu too much? Why was her head filled with such nonsense? How would I know what you're thinking? We're not telepathic, Zhao Min pouted and murmured, leaving Tao Yu somewhat speechless. This foolish heroine really said whatever came to her mind. Didn't she mention every single pose she struck along the way? What about keeping in character? I understand, my lord. Go ahead and do what you need to do, and be careful on your way. Don't worry, they're just a few small fry. Tao Yu patted her head and hesitated for a moment before rewarding her with a small peck, stepping into a shadow and leaving the room through the gap in the window, in the face of Zhao Min's suddenly flushed complexion. He then hurried off in a precise direction. It shouldn't be so soon, should it? They have backgrounds and family power, and they hold a grudge against me. The malice I sense through spirit perception is almost becoming substantive, it's not easy for me either. Damn it! Who exactly does he work for? He has no respect for the rules. After leaving Xiangyang, the 8 men each mounted a horse and rode swiftly along the official road. The pale, beardless leader now looked grim and ruthless. The other party was definitely not someone from his hero lexicon, he had at least seen photos of significant family scions from the inner city. Someone so handsome, he couldn't possibly forget. So, there was only one answer. He's not the offspring of some major family at all, he's just talented, which is why his background is clean enough to be highly utilized by the sons. Damn it, someone only brave with a noble's backing. It was too frustrating earlier, one man using the natives to deal with us. Does he think he can stay by the side of the natives all the time? What should we do now? Just slink back home like this? Some among them felt indignant, having traveled 1,000 miles, only to find that all the benefits had been snapped up. They had finally encountered the primary target, only to be faced with someone who has no respect for rules and is resistant to persuasion. And yet, they genuinely had no way to deal with him. We go south. To Linen. He doesn't have the clone technique. After dealing with these martial artists, can he also handle the officials at the same time? It must be said that these 8 individuals were indeed the cream of the crop for siege warfare. Even if their own experience wasn't rich, they could learn because of the good conditions at home. So, we're just letting him off like this? Someone couldn't help but ask. Hehe, let it go? How many people who have relied on a noble's backing and acted recklessly have gone missing without a trace? The pale, beardless captain revealed a sinister and mocking expression, his eyes also becoming more profound. This is the abyss. The boss is right, let him be arrogant for now. There will always be an opportunity. However, at that moment, they realized that on the official road ahead, there was a figure dressed in a partner's suit standing quietly, watching them approach. This made them tense up. When did this happen? How had they not noticed before? Wait, look at the badge on his chest. A special badge? A senior partner? No way, although the Titans have the strength of senior partners, they don't have enough points, do they? I remember that badge, it's deadly bullets. Someone recognized the twin gun badge, but quickly they all realized something was wrong. Hang on, Deadly Bullet was a person from the old development zone, wasn't he? The teleportation queues weren't up yet, so how did he get here? You know too much. Without waiting for their reaction, Tao Yu immediately utilized the high-speed gun drawing technique he had learned from Deadly Bullet last time. Chapter 289. Custom bullets swarmed out. Bang bang bang. Enemy attack. Take him down. Damn it, even high-ranking partners must die. The 8 men, already simmering with anger, now faced someone suddenly jumping out posing as a high-ranking partner, raising a hand and firing upon them, immediately driving them into a seething rage. So what if he really is a high-ranking partner? With our combined strength. Bang bang bang. Bullets, guided with precision around corners, struck all 8 men as they leaped up to dodge, igniting a series of sparks in mid-air. Even though they all had protective gear, and one even possessed a protective stance item. But mixed with mental attacks and the power of Shadow Force, successive shots instantly claimed the lives of 6 men. These 2 guns were indeed quality goods of a high-ranking partner, even Tao Yu had to rely on the convenience of Kyunkan Great Shift to withstand their assault. That 2 could resist with the help of their items and survive was quite surprising to Tao Yu. Interesting. Boom boom boom. 3 mechanically augmented corpses burst into flames one after another, flinging the remaining bio-augmented individual and the beardless leader behind a huge rock, in a most pitiful state. Who the hell are you? Why are you attacking us? Behind me stands Lord Pavis. Is this some kind of misunderstanding? Glancing at a cracked cross metal, the beardless leader's face was full of distress, daring only to hide behind the rock and parley with words. The fellow with the bio-augmentations beside him fared even worse, his body blasted, bleeding profusely, charred all over. Blood continued to trickle onto the ground. Tao Yu had no intention of answering, he'd remotely taken down 3 self-destructive dogs, and dealing with these 2 manually wouldn't be a problem. He proceeded unfalteringly toward the rock behind which the 2 had taken cover. The sound of his footsteps was unabashed. This made the complexions of the 2 pioneers behind the rock gradually twist into ferocity. You, a gunslinger, think you can simply circle around to finish us off? Do you realize why the 2 of us survived your earlier attack? The 2 exchanged looks, then almost simultaneously burst out from either side of the rock, attacking Tao Yu from left and right, coordinating seamlessly. Flowing water, evasion, breakthrough assault, acceleration. The man with the pallid face augmented himself with 4 battle techniques at once, his body's surface cracking from the immense strain, exposing sinewy crimson tendons. Yet it indeed pushed his speed, destructive power, and reflexes to the limit. The short blade in his hand was erratic in the air, seemingly capable of evolving any assassin move, covering all directions in its attack. On the other side, the charred figure with the bio-augmentation saw his left arm explode in an instant, transforming into 4 tendrils of flesh and blood that lashed towards Tao Yu, with a sharp white bone spike in the midst. In terms of sheer prowess, the desperate strikes of the 2 were indeed substantial. Read exclusive chapters at Empire. The fluttering blade paused just in front of Tao Yu, trembling as if leaving behind high-frequency afterimages, yet it stubbornly couldn't close the gap beyond 2.5 feet. The 4 tendrils of flesh, on the other hand, stopped 3 feet from Tao Yu, with only that inconspicuous white bone spike advancing a foot further, surprising even Tao Yu. Not bad in terms of strength. Seeing Tao Yu's reaction, the 2 men, who had pushed their bodies to the brink to deliver a deadly blow, now couldn't help but show signs of despair. What kind of monster is this? Aren't you supposed to be good at shooting? And yet our combined, strained assault can't even penetrate your outermost defense. Couldn't you at least lift a finger? Not bad, let's leave it at that, then. Tao Yu casually flicked his sleeve with one hand, the force of the Kyunkan Great Shift intertwined, cutting off the head of the bio-augmented pioneer with the short blade, while the bone spike pierced through the pallid-faced man's body, bringing both to fall, consumed by regret. Ah, 8 of them, ah, how will I explain this when I get back? I'll get scolded. Looking at the corpses strewn all over the ground, Tao Yu rifled through the bodies while also letting out a sigh of regret, having previously agreed to refrain from killing pioneers, yet they kept pathetically throwing themselves at him. Too much. Chapter 290, The Eldest Miss arrives. 50 riders galloped across the plains, accompanied by numerous pure titans nearby. Now, these pure titans seemed to be driven by some power, reversing direction and retreating toward the north. Tao Yu rode on horseback, looking at these controlled pure titans with a trace of sentimentality on his face. I never imagined that to trigger the power of the ancestor, all they needed was to touch it. However, it's a pity that under the suppression of this world, Aaron's powers can't be fully utilized and can only be deployed within one area at a time. Tao Yu looked at Aaron and Zeke, whose expressions were somewhat solemn, not knowing exactly what had transpired when they touched. But after the contact, Aaron indeed could periodically use the ancestor's power to start directing all titans toward converging on Paradise Island, albeit the range of influence was not as large as he remembered. From a full-screen skill to an area-based one. Aaron, what exactly happened to you before? If there's any problem, speak up. Maybe I can give some advice. You have to know, your world has also fallen into the abyss, and there have been changes once again. Tao Yu's words made Aaron hesitate for a moment, but then he spoke with a hint of helplessness. I don't know the details. I could only vaguely hear some unclear voices coming from a distance, but I couldn't make them out clearly. I heard my father's voice, heard my own voice, it's so strange. And for some reason, since touching Aaron, Zeke had become somewhat strange, remaining silent throughout the journey. Monkey, don't you have anything to say? I don't know. Zeke appeared somewhat bewildered at this time. Tao Yu had already learned from him that the world of the Titans seemed to be centered around a large island called Paradise Island, and beyond the island lay a continent with a powerful country called Marley. The Titans were transformed from Eldians, but for some reason, the Eldians had become the lower class, kept by the Merlians. In any case, it all seemed somewhat off. Having been torn into the abyss, most of Marley's territory had also been ripped apart, and on the other side was an endless ocean, which Tao Yu suspected to be the sea from the world of Heavenly Sword and Dragon Slaying Saber. It felt like when Heavenly Sword and Dragon Slaying Saber were merged, a puzzle piece was missing, and the abyss randomly tore off a patch to fill it in. Now, Zeke was equally perplexed, having no idea what to do. Stay tuned for updates on Empire. Then let's just leave it at that for now. I feel like there might be something wrong with this power of the ancestor. Drive the Titans back to the north of the Yellow River, and try to control them to return to Paradise Island. You can't delve deeper. Tao Yu frowned, feeling that if he brought Aaron and Zeke back to Paradise Island, something bad was bound to happen. Tao Yu trusted his spirit perception, and decided that this was the end of it. Okay, I will try. As my strength improves, my ability to control the Titans will also enhance. Tao Yu had rescued Mikasa, and now Aaron had considerable trust in him. He himself also had a vague feeling that something significant would happen if he returned to Paradise Island, the voices in his mind whispering like a demon. Considering the environment of the abyss, he suspected some devil was trying to tempt him into corruption. Monkey, I don't want any unpleasant things to happen when I leave. I understand. Zeke glanced at Tao Yu with a calm tone, and somehow, he just seemed to have become despondent. I will watch over him. At this time, Mikasa also spoke up, declaring her intention to protect Aaron. Seeing this, Tao Yu relaxed a bit. The strength on Zionjiang's side was growing stronger, and Aaron, as the root of controlling the Titans to avoid their disaster, would naturally receive the best protection. The murky waters of the river flowed slowly, with its broad surface barely allowing a glimpse of the opposite bank. This river, which had nurtured the civilization of the Central Plains for thousands of years, was past the dry season, but many areas still had gentle currents. 50 riders stopped at the bank, watching the Titans, standing in knee-high water, bellowing at the height of dozens of meters. Aaron's attack Titan kept roaring, gathering along the way, and Titans with odd expressions, one after another, plunged into the Yellow River, continuing toward the opposite bank. The smaller ones were quickly swept away by the current, but even during the process of being swept away, they still kept moving forward. Let's bring this to a close for now. Watching as one titan after another plunged into the river, Tao Yu pulled the reins and looked at Aaron, who was gasping for breath after transforming back, and a smile appeared on his face. Aaron, you've worked hard. Lacking the world's blessing at this time, Aaron managed to endure so long solely by practicing the 9 yin true scripture and killing a large number of titans, greatly enhancing his abilities in all respects. Upon hearing Tao Yu's words, he too grinned. Not at all, I never expected to play such an important role, it's just a pity. Aaron gazed towards the riverbank north of the Yellow River, his eyes filled with shades of despondency. If only I had mastered this power earlier, how good would that have been? Damn it, damn it! Aaron was filled with unwillingness, regret, and remorse, but ultimately he sighed deeply. Thinking so much is too late now, better to focus on the present. He really wanted to go back to Paradise Island to see if he could save some survivors, to save as many as possible. But reason told him that without the protection of the walls, those titans truly couldn't be stopped. And with Tao Yu's repeated reminders, Aaron equally felt that something about him was connected to the world of Paradise Island, and it was probably something terrible. Their first operation yielded proof of the viability of their method, and although there were still many titans in the Central Plains region, what followed was just a repetitive process. Tao Yu saw no need to keep watch any longer. While he led an attempt to drive away the titans, he had already arranged for Zhao Min to select 1,000 elite riders from the steppes to oversee the snake breeding. For now, it was still unclear what requirements the busk serpents had for their habitat, so Tao Yu's idea was to first enclose that mountainous area. This was the snake breeding zone, full of old, mature snakes, from which eggs would be harvested, to be taken back to Panda for research. Eventually, Panda would arrange for some people to come over and continue the work, relying on Tao Yu's influence and remaining power in the world of divine sculpture to maintain order. Nevertheless, it was imperative to arm these soldiers quickly, as there were still too few firearms. The 100-meter abyss that marked the junction between worlds was indeed a major hindrance. After deploying divine sculpture as a gatekeeper, the immediate task was to capture more creatures with strong reproductive capabilities like rabbits and release them inside to breed freely. Our current goal is to cultivate breeding snakes, collect eggs, and ultimately it'll require Panda's side to develop some form of mechanization or automation to manage this efficiently. Machines would grip the snake's mouth, periodically stuffing food inside, and they would have to eat regardless of their appetite. Such utilization of efficiency was optimal, as free-range breeding was too slow. At that moment, Tao Yu's watch began to vibrate, bringing a smile to his face. It was the little rich lady's signal entering range from her hovercraft. Have you arrived? Yes, I'm already at the snake farm. I'll need to arrange the batch you purchased and then have them cross the sea to set off. Tao Yu explained his plan. You take care of it. Just let them make their own way, I'll come pick you up first. The little rich lady seemed not to mind. 2,000 to 3,000 well-trained elites were indeed a significant force for the current settlement, useful no matter where they were placed. But to the little rich lady, the overall situation was just as it was. As pioneers gradually infiltrated the neighboring worlds, they too would start training slowly. Well-trained elites were indeed much more valuable than ordinary people, but these elites were also trained from ordinary people. Chapter 291, 1,000 miles in one day. In the Anfa mansion of Xiang Yang, a stunningly beautiful figure lounged lazily in the main seat, propping her cheek with one hand while observing both the trembling Cheng Lixu beside her and Zhao Min, who boldly continued to survey her. She actually didn't sneak any food, seems like it did have some effect. Sun Xiu glanced at the clever and peculiar Zhao Min, then looked at the beautiful ladies of the Yimei sect and Mikasa, her mood seemingly lifted a great deal. How come he's not here yet? Where could he have gone? Reporting to Miss, the young master might have gone to see his snake farm, he had arranged for some soldiers to collect snake eggs there. Zhao Min reported respectfully to Sun Xiu. It wasn't just him, at this moment, all the elite members of the 6 major sects, as well as the representatives of martial arts experts from the divine sculpture, were also within this mansion, listening to the decree, not daring to overstep in the slightest. Anyone who saw a breathtakingly beautiful woman descend from the skies and casually flip over the city gate of Xiangyang along with the ramparts above, then ask them to come and wait, would behave themselves without daring any form of rebellion. In fact, Sun Xiu had already visited Xiangyang once before, and Guojing and the others had seen her, except back then Sun Xiu had not forced them to do anything, allowing them to stay and defend Xiangyang to the death. Now, after the crisis in Xiangyang city was resolved, they had realized that this lady was actually the biggest crisis for Xiangyang. Even during the craziest moments of the Titan siege, it was just a few aberrants crashing through parts of the walls, nowhere near as exaggerated as the casual flip executed by the opponent. The members of the 6 major sects felt an overwhelming sense of powerlessness. It turned out that what Taoist Tao had said was all true. No wonder he had described pioneers in such a way. Just then, accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps outside, Tao Yu's voice could be heard before he appeared. "Ayo, my dear lady, please don't be so impatient. The Titans were only chased away temporarily, there might still be some that slipped through the net. How could you have flipped the city gate?" Heaven knows what Tao Yu felt when he returned to Xiangyang and saw that gaping void where not only the gate but also the ramparts above had completely vanished. For such a feat to be accomplished in such a short time, it surely must have been this young lady. "Hey? Didn't you reply earlier saying that the issue was resolved?" Sun Xia was delighted to see Tao Yu at first, but she quickly suppressed her expression. "Sort of, just to be cautious. Later, when we head back, we can only bring 2 people, I'll arrange for Aaron and the others to continue staying here to drive away the Titans." Tao Yu pressed his nose bridge. In fact, he had already made most of the arrangements needed. Only because he had to bring back a batch of snake eggs did he end up guarding that mountaintop. Besides that, arrangements were made to inquire about the location of Unfeeling Valley. He had been almost non-stop tying loose ends for this place during this period. "Oh, then there's no issue, right? Shall we depart?" Sun Xia glanced at Cheng Lixiu. The motorboat could indeed carry 2 more people, but this foolish woman was too stupid, and she always felt like staying too close might be contagious. "Yes, they still have to lead the team back. But my master, senior sister and brother-in-law should be planning to stay," Tao Yu explained briefly. Guojing couldn't let go of the Central Plains just yet, he wouldn't likely relinquish his burden and retire until all the Titans had been chased away. They could bring them back to the gathering place then. The chosen ones were indeed meant to follow the gathering place, where their potential could grow even more in the future. "Oh, all right then." For now, they weren't short on these 2 chosen ones. Also, about the elites from the 6 major sects, I had promised to let them return once the Titans were hunted down, Tao Yu said, pretending to be serious. This moved members of the 6 major sects greatly. Discover hidden content at Empire. They could hardly believe that Taoist Tao still remembered us. "Hey? That many? No way, they are to follow your woman and head back to base with me," Sun Xia declared, then turned her head to look at the people from the 6 major sects and let out a light snort. "Who agrees? Who opposes?" Though Sun Xia's voice was delicate, sweet and indulgent, it was like a demonic chant in the ears of the martial arts experts from the 6 major sects, making them tremble in fear. Even the most stubborn, Miju, did not utter another word. "See, they have no objections. It's settled." "No objections, then that's good," Tao Yu concluded. Tao Yu sighed and turned back to speak to the people of the 6 major factions. "Everyone, since we've promised the young miss, we must see it through. Otherwise, when the young miss gets angry, it can be quite troublesome. You've seen how she travels much faster than I do. If we have to go to our respective sects, it would be difficult for me to explain." Hearing Tao Yu's words, the people nodded repeatedly, and Kong Ji even chanted a Buddhist mantra. "Amitabha, as a monk, I do not lie. Since we have promised, we will surely go. Now that many realms have fallen into the Avasai hell, we monks must seek to save all sentient beings." Tao Yu, upon hearing this, praised them repeatedly, commending them for their vision and sense of responsibility. "Are we done?" Sun Xia's pretty face showed a hint of impatience. We're done. Then let's set off." After speaking, Sun Xia walked straight outside. Meanwhile, Tao Yu turned back to glance at Xiaomin and Cheng Lixiu, saying, "Safety first. If you encounter pioneers causing trouble, use the excuse I told you about." "Understood, young master, please be at ease." Xiaomin took on the responsibility confidently, and Tao Yu nodded, then turned and left. At least from her actions on the road this time, Tao Yu was very satisfied. Although she could stir up issues, she was indeed very capable and handled even the minutest details very well. Tao Yu then arrived outside the residence and saw Sun Xia gesture casually, causing the sky's hovering motorcycle to swoop down. The 2 leaped onto it together, then raced off into the sky. They left behind the people of the martial world who finally seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. With that young miss present, her aura had been too strong, they didn't even dare take a deep breath. Is this what the top fighters from the pioneers are like? Truly, their strength is unfathomable. Being able to work directly under Tao, a true master, seems pretty good. At least compared to the attitude and tone of those 8 who had left previously, the other pioneers are indeed not easy to talk to. Now it's as if they have an extra layer of protection. High above, once again sitting behind Sun Xiu, wrapping his arm around her slender waist, Tao Yu's eyes also showed a glint of something different. Last time, he hadn't dared let any distractions enter his mind, focusing entirely on meditation to keep his composure, but this time, feeling the smooth touch and smelling that familiar scent of her body, the hand Tao Yu had around her unintentionally began to wander. He whispered in Sun Xiu's ear with a mischievous smile. Your battle suit is quite bothersome. Bothersome? Then I'll just take it off. Sun Xiu stood up, unzipped the suit causing it to peel away from the sides, revealing a scene that's indescribable. Tao Yu's eyes widened. Wait, this. No one's watching, why are you shy? We're almost there, wake up. The call in his ear brought Tao Yu back from his sage-like trance, and soon he could see the outline of the base in the distance. Indeed, the ride of a little rich girl was much faster than his subpar vehicle. But the only thing to be glad about was that the advancements from the second deification of dragon-elephant prujna technique and assimilating all shapes were evidently much more significant than the previous whatnot deifications like the 9 yin. Although he still relied on the taming technique as a cheat, the duration had doubled each time, finally giving him ample opportunity to truly comprehend it. Zhao Min seems to be capable of handling things. She could be the deputy, she's much better than that blockhead Cheng Lixu. Sun Xiu's sultry voice entered his ears, making Tao Yu even more alert. He then asked. Should you drop me off first? Aren't there people from Floating City around? Won't they see us? But no sooner had he spoken than Tao Yu felt that familiar enveloping sensation, a translucent layer of fluid wrapped around them, whisking the two toward the residence of the little rich girl without causing a ripple. Chapter 292. Changes. It's only been half a year, what a big change. Tao Yu looked at the expanding base, the airport that had been repaired, and the several transport planes on the airport, his face also showing a trace of emotion. Although Panda had found a shortcut to the monster world and made a fortune. But after all, Las Vegas itself also had other places with transport planes, even if they had been grounded for so long and might need maintenance, by now, it was normal to have gathered some capable repair personnel. The airport runway was also pre-existing. Although Las Vegas went heavily into industrialization, the military and high-end systems are still there. It's just not known how much is left after having gone through an apocalypse. Tao Yu remembered how Las Vegas's several aircraft carriers had been laid up one after another, and now to pick up a shoddy Las Vegas and the remaining talents, it was kind of a stretch to maintain and fix a few big planes, but it was very impressive. He guessed that parts were probably being patched together to keep things going, and the situation would likely keep declining until the new development zone fully completed industrialization and connected with it, which would probably take a long time. Although Tao Yu came back with the young heiress, he didn't head directly to their place. Not to mention he was already done for, even if he still had the energy, he didn't want to make it so obvious, especially now that other floating city people had arrived in the development zone. He still needed to be cautious. The base hasn't expanded much in terms of usage area, the main thing is that the original spaces inside have all been utilized. Las Vegas, on the other hand, has become a production center and a major supply rear. Walking inside the base, Tao Yu noticed that the order within the base had become much more regulated, with designated areas for setting up stalls and for forming teams looking well organized. And in the base, the number of people leading aliens had clearly increased. In addition to the thick chains, the aliens' tails were also fixed onto their bodies, and all had headgear on their heads, probably because there were too many biting incidents leading to some new regulations. And to be honest, with all the aliens uniformly dressed, it really did give off a dog-walking vibe. Now that wild aliens had become rarer, there's probably no need to worry about accidental injuries anymore. At this moment, several loudspeakers inside the base were continuously broadcasting reminders and warnings about things that were easy to mess up. The base no longer offers extra rewards to ordinary residents. Ordinary residents, please head to Las Vegas, where the zombies have been cleared. If you have skills in electrical work, welding, bricklaying, car maintenance, mechanical repair, etc., you may receive special talent introduction rewards. Specific rewards will be decided based on actual conditions. Do not urinate or defecate in public. Do not urinate or defecate in public. It seems some of the bad habits developed outside the city have not been resolved so quickly. And, unlike at the beginning when it was easy to obtain a residency slot, Tao Yu now saw people setting up tents and even makeshift sheds on the outskirts of the base. For pioneers, even if there may be ready-made mansions in Las Vegas, they still prefer to set their base of return close to the base, even if it's just in a dog's kennel. After all, safety is always the priority in the abyss. So, Tao Yu made his way towards Jack's dormitory, passing through the bustling stall area and hearing various hawkers shouting. Some shouted themselves, while others managed to get loudspeakers capable of replaying their messages. The stalls were all within the white lines drawn on the ground, with a garish and varied array of items. And among them, firearms were the most abundant. The military spirit of Las Vegas was fully demonstrated. In the past, a handgun could probably sell for 100 Yuan Force, but now Tao Yu estimated that the oversupply of firearms in the new development zone had started to cause a backlash in the present world. Had it not been for different bullet calibers, the price of ordinary firearms in the present world would probably have plummeted to rock bottom. The bullet production line Panda targeted is indeed pretty good. No matter how many guns there are, they're useless without bullets. In his heart, Tao Yu still quite approved of Panda's discernment. Take a look, the rare alien mouth that can create an assassin skill, only 50 Yuan Force, 50. Miss this opportunity, and there won't be another. Collect it yourself, assemble a set of skills, and it's a huge bargain. 2 alien tails for sale, real cheap, only 5 more than direct absorption. Experience exclusive tails on Empire. A complete selection of firearms, feel free to choose. Casings, reloadable ammunition, all cheap. Any takers for dried alien meat? Acid and toxins removed, may not taste good, but it replenishes chi blood and boosts virility. As Tao Yu looked around, he truly found that there were all kinds of goods for sale. And at the stall selling alien meat, there were indeed a few onlookers. Anything related to boosting virility does sell well. Tao Yu glanced at it and, using his own abilities, concluded that it was all a bunch of nonsense. He shook his head and walked away. Before Tao Yu reached Jack's house, however, he unexpectedly saw this big-nosed man in a hurry, carrying a roll of blueprints under his arm and wearing a white safety helmet, heading towards a construction site. The key thing was that wherever he went, people greeted him, not just the original residents but the pioneers as well. Supervisor Jack, good to see you. Mr. Jack. Jack. Jack could only nod hastily in response, until he heard a familiar voice and thought he was hallucinating. When he turned his head subconsciously to look, he didn't believe his eyes upon seeing that handsome figure, and after rubbing his eyes to make sure he wasn't mistaken, he burst into laughter. You little rascal, I thought you died out there, haven't seen you in over half a year. Jack stopped in his tracks and then walked over to Tao Yu. Didn't I leave you a message? Man, you've got quite the presence. Tao Yu thumped Jack's chest, his eyes lighting up slightly. Not bad, you've already mastered the Yuan Force. Of course, killing so many aliens every day, how could I not? Otherwise, it would be a waste, replied Jack with a fair bit of pride. Being a chosen one, Jack had a high conversion rate for Yuan Force, but lacked the ability to gather it. Fortunately, with the initial start of alien breeding, he had no problem taking down aliens daily. Due to the aliens' mass production capabilities, his strength was increasing even faster than most pioneers. From the feedback from the punch Tao Yu had just thrown, it was evident that Yuan Force was coursing through Jack's entire body. In the new development zone, there probably weren't many pioneers who could surpass his mastery of Yuan Force. Go ahead with your business. I've got something good for you, better start training soon, as another big wave of competitors is on their way, said Tao Yu, waving his hand at him. Jack immediately passed the blueprints he was carrying to the black man, Senkei, standing beside him. Then what the hell am I waiting for, let's hurry. He also didn't forget to turn to Senkei and say. Senkei, it's in your hands now. Got it, Boss Jack, Boss Tao, don't forget about me when you're reaping the benefits, Senkei replied with a grin, greeting Tao Yu. He too had practiced myriad streams 5 forms, but alas, he wasn't a chosen one and was getting on in years, so his progress was very slow. For now, he could only be considered to have barely grasped the basics of the forms. The journey to harness chi blood was still long and possibly unreachable in his lifetime. This was the gap between ordinary residents and the chosen ones, a gap that seemed impossible to bridge. Meanwhile, the others nearby were quite surprised to see Tao Yu, a new face, who had just turned up and whisked Jack away. "Who's that? Never seen him before. I've been here quite a while myself. Didn't Mr. Jack just say? He's not been seen for 6 months, one of the earliest pioneers." Ah, the earliest batch really had it good, getting along with the chosen ones. Unlike now, there are too many people wanting to make connections. Don't you see the death rate? I'm actually glad I was born a bit later. The aliens have been cleaned up specifically, otherwise, if an alien jumped on your face, what could you do to survive? Chapter 293. Hidden Danger. Inner Strength. The 9 Yin True Scripture. My God, does that stuff really exist? Jack paced excitedly around the dorm, gesticulating non-stop with his hands and feet. He had previously studied the myriad streams 5 elements and the breathing technique, combined with the abilities of a chosen one, his progress was visibly fast. He knew that if he could get his hands on inner strength, he would be able to improve as well. You don't know, little Xian and glasses are complete monsters. They have such a huge innate advantage, innate extraordinary skills, and they improve so quickly. When I first developed my strength, I surpassed little Xian once, but now he's started learning too. Jack aired his helpless complaints on this side. You, outperforming little Xian with your strength? I don't believe it, he must have let you win. Little Xian and glasses were both innately demonized, so even before they started absorbing Yuan Force, they weren't weak. With only strength in defense, which has weaknesses, it's very difficult to defeat them. So you really don't trust me? Jack first grumbled a complaint, but then he continued. He wasn't in his demonized state when we fought. This made Tao Yu roll his eyes. Oh boy, you're using strength to fight someone who isn't even in their demonized state? After all, once demonized, they're already restricted and affected, if not transformed, they're at most just a bit stronger physically. If you can't win under those circumstances, you might as well throw in the towel. Alright, enough with the impatience, otherwise, it's very difficult even to get started. It took me a long time to learn back then. I'm just giving you a leg up. If you haven't got it in half a month, wait for the coach to come back. When Tao Yu rode over on Sun Xiu's bike, he also passed by Little Black's territory and those Shaolin monks' convoy. But since he was busy, he didn't bother to take another look. But he should be arriving soon. Haha, did you forget how quickly I picked up the stance skill? I'm a martial arts prodigy, mastering inner strength is a piece of cake. Buddy, teach me one more time, just one more time. Jack kept clutching his own hair, looking anxiously distressed. What the hell, there's some vague and highfalutin stuff, totally incomprehensible. You should practice the muscle changing and bone forging scripture first. Once your aptitude improves, start with the Shaolin breathing technique, and then we'll move on to the muscle changing scripture. Forget the 9 Yin True Scripture. In the end, Tao Yu made Jack choose the path of his own family. Changing aptitude with the muscle changing and bone forging scripture, using the Shaolin breathing technique as a prerequisite, and then seamlessly connecting to the muscle changing scripture made the steps much simpler. But even so, Tao Yu couldn't help but throw in a sarcastic comment. Ha! A martial arts genius. Tao Yu's words sent Jack into a spiral of self-doubt, he regretted boasting. While Tao Yu was teaching Jack the basics of inner strength, their exchange in the stall area was noticed by some people, who then treated the information as intelligence to be compiled and circulated amongst different places. Jack? Oh, that lucky kid from the outer city. A major shareholder of Dada Company is back. Interesting, seems like things are heating up again. Brew and those guys ended up being bought by Dada, wonder how much they had to bleed for that. Maybe we could collaborate. The newly developed development zone was fraught with many powerhouses and chaotic scenes, with different individuals having starkly different attitudes. But the vast majority chose to wait and see for the time being. Although the major shareholder of Dada Company had been missing for over half a year, current rumors that he'd caught the eye of the Sun's siblings weren't unfounded. Dada Company was still maintaining a neutral stance, an extremely rare occurrence. The specific extent was unknown, but for most inner-city pioneers, they certainly wouldn't rashly do anything to offend. Even those who wanted to test the waters would prefer to let others try first. As it stood, the first batch who went to probe, Brew's team, had turned coat and colluded with the enemy. This team, initially targeting the Forest 02 world fragment, had come back empty-handed, barely even getting a taste of the pie. At that time, Dada Company's territory was the most desirable, and they easily persuaded them to go and make a move. If Dada Company showed any sign of weakness, they might even have to cede more territory. But who would have thought the outcome would be the absorption of Bru and his team? A little over a month ago, they abruptly announced they were taking over the protection of Dada Company's territory. This was quite unexpected. In fact, Dada Company was not weak. Panda, the son of a high-level partner, had done quite well to build up such a big plate and unite so many sides. Now, with the addition of Bru and his team, even the territory they currently occupied was completely defendable. Those who had a good relationship also inquired with Bru's team to find out how much they were paid and the extent of their collaboration. But all they got in return were Bru and his team's looks of deep resentment, not revealing anything, tight-lipped. This made other parties a bit perplexed. Among these inner-city forces gathering information, while most chose to watch from the sidelines, there were others who absolutely couldn't sit still. In Las Vegas, within an alien farm, a black wild boar man holding a walkie-talkie listened to its contents, his pig face growing more ferocious, drooling at the mouth under his boar tusks. He's back? How could he be back? How? Experience new tales on Empire. His frantic and urgent expression caused a white wild boar man lying lazily on a spacious sun chair soaking up the sun to speak indolently. Prickle, what's gotten into you? Wearing only a pair of shorts and adorned with a necklace and sunglasses, the white boar man looked very laid back. Big bro, it's that kid I mentioned before. The guys in the shed are all down, no trace of them alive or dead. It's just that he also hasn't come back for more than half a year. Maybe he's hiding due to the fear of the murder being exposed, the black wild boar hurriedly explained to his brother. He knew of the other's taming technique and that he might have caught the eye of some big shot. Still, he dared to act with such impunity because he had his own confidence. His family was a beast-taming noble house. In his view, he was just a kid who got lucky with a rare skill. After all, who could blame him for someone disappearing in the wild? He even had an alibi for the time. As long as everything was done cleanly, there would be no problems, no troubles that couldn't be taken care of. The big hots of Float City couldn't possibly be omniscient, there were too many ways to deceive them. It would have been best to extract the source of the taming technique or learn it, even if he didn't succeed, it didn't matter. Eliminating a potential competitive threat was a no-lose situation either way. Today, the best aliens tamed in the development zone were all thanks to their family's secret beast taming methods. Unfortunately, though their family's beast taming secrets were effective, they still paled in comparison to the taming technique of that country bumpkin from the outer city. His alien queen had remained quite docile and cooperative even after half a year, which was unimaginable for their professional beast tamer family. So it's him. If he's related to the sons, then there's definitely trouble. You weren't thorough enough in your work. How could you use the method you'd use for hunting ordinary inner-city pioneers? If he had just died, there was no need to worry about having an alibi. Even the big hots of the floating city wouldn't avenge a dead man. If you had followed him yourself, wouldn't that have solved all the problems? The white wild boar man, now slightly more serious, sat up from his sun chair. Chapter 294. Mutual rushing towards each other. Tao, are these the serpent eggs? Panda's face lit up with excitement as he saw the big bag of serpent eggs Tao Yu handed over. Are you all set? Where did you choose? Tao Yu tossed the bag to Panda and asked casually. Discover more stories at Empire. We chose Forest 01, close to the transfer camp over there. We got it cheap back when the aliens made trouble, but now its value has skyrocketed. Excitement was evident on Panda's face as well. Each world fragment could produce only a limited amount of Yuan Force crops, and the amount differed depending on the fragment. Although the nearby areas were far from reaching their production limit, securing a plot closest to the base in a neighboring fragment was still pretty valuable. Otherwise, if it's too far, it's hard to take care of. One could foresee that for a long time to come, the new development zone would struggle with a lack of manpower and wouldn't be able to extend its influence too far. Several old pioneers also risked farming further fragments, but except for a few who had strong indigenous ties and good relationships, the outcomes weren't great in the long run. Regularly harvested crops also tended to be regularly harvested by others. In the abyss, safety always comes first. Forest soil isn't exactly ideal for many Yuan Force plants, it takes a few years of cultivating other preliminary crops first. But now, it's perfect for serpent farming. And according to some specialists we've brought in, these serpents are best raised in forested areas. They're not familiar with other habitats, so it's best not to change their environment drastically, Panda explained. Makes sense. I'll leave it to you. I'll get those Yuan Force crops to you next time, or I'll have the next batch of chosen ones bring them over, Tao Yu said, patting Panda on the shoulder. This works out since I'm mainly focusing on serpent farming for now. The bullet production line can be left to others to fine-tune, Panda revealed his upcoming focus. The line was from a neighboring world and was actually a complete, qualified production line. But with machinery, the discrepancies in tuning and assembly can be significant. Even bullet manufacturing, which most countries cannot achieve due to the high craftsmanship required. Because of the lack of skilled workers, the current yield of quality products is somewhat lacking, but it's still much better than reloaded ammo and the overall quality is guaranteed. It's a pity, though, we have already dug in too much. Actually, that grand, beautiful country still has lots of valuable remains, but now, almost all their military bases are eyed by large teams. A gleam shone in Tao Yu's eyes as he heard this, and then he said. Perfect timing since I'm back. I'll have to take a long trip soon, so I might as well take care of everything while I'm at it. Which team has messed with us? I'll sort them out. Pick one that's close by. It was rare for Tao Yu to come back and not cause some stir. Wouldn't it be a waste otherwise? Just need to strike the right balance and try not to kill in broad daylight. Well, there hasn't been any of that. I've managed our relations reasonably well. Brew and his lot were instigated, coupled with wasting too much time earlier and not getting any real turf, that's why they tried their luck. Instigated? By whom? Tao Yu's retort left Panda momentarily stupefied. Oh dear. People do these things quietly, just set up a local and it's done. There's no way to find evidence. If every little tactic counted, then virtually everyone in the settlement would be an enemy. Panda sighed. It was akin to the issue of judging actions instead of intentions. Even though he had already probed the matter, these types of tactics were an essential part of daily interactions. Forget the development zone, even two colleagues from external factories would often verbally probe each other to ensure how they'd get along in the future. If you counted all of that, it would be you against the world. Then pick the one with the highest probability. Encouragement filled Tao Yu's eyes. That's kind of tough, we've got no evidence. Panda felt somewhat tempted. Their main investor was always out causing a stir, might as well let him take the fall for something. It did seem rather appealing. What proof do you need? Are you preparing to test for the security team? The beast tamers messed with us once, and we took over 3 territories, didn't we? I originally wanted to start cultivating aliens early, but it seems like they wanted to monopolize the industry and exerted some pressure. I didn't want to cause a conflict, so I didn't go ahead with it. Panda carefully explained, then proceeded to clarify the situation regarding the beast tamer's family to Tao Yu. The beast tamer's family's influence in the inner city is not weak, though it doesn't compare to the very top few, it is still first-rate. Currently, in the new development zone, there are suspected to be 7 kings with the strength of senior partners, and their family occupies one of those spots. Panda had to mingle here and had his own heroes register. Presently, in the new development zone, apart from Tao Yu, there are 7 suspected pioneers with the strength of senior partners, 5 of whom come from the 5 top families of the inner city. To some extent, those families could even be considered as means for Floating City to control the inner city. All can be counted as branches or direct descendants of some family from the Floating City. Apart from these 5 top families, there are the Longzi clan, 100 Fruits family, and Beast Tamers family. These were the pillars of the inner city, each controlling a significant amount of production resources. For example, the Beast Tamers family excels in beast taming and animal husbandry, having cultivated a large number of Yuan Force creatures in the old development zone, while the 100 Fruits family specializes in cultivation. The power of the Beast Tamers family alone is not enough to monopolize the alien industry. In fact, they do something similar to us, they constantly recruit various powers to invest, they take care of the operations, and in the end, everyone shares the profits. Panda objectively explained the overall situation of the Beast Tamers family. Do they have someone from the Floating City backing them? What's their relationship like? Tao Yu first clarified the most critical issue. Yes, currently, apart from the initial 2 from the sons, there are 12 influential figures from Floating City, divided into 3 factions. 3 of them are direct descendants of the sons, here only to assist, taking care of some management work and mediating in the gathering places without taking sides, or rather, they only take orders from the 2 from the sons. Of the remaining 9, they're split into 2 factions, with the Beast Tamer's family being the core lineage of one faction, led by Lord Caite, with Lord Pavis and Lord Lu Tao assisting. Because Lord Caite is strong and assertive, he stands toe-to-toe with the other 6 lords. Panda, after all, has established a considerable industry here and has been very concerned about the changes in the new development zone all along. Even the relationships between those influential figures from Floating City can be straightened out. And to Tao Yu, the fact that the 3 weren't at a disadvantage against the 6 wasn't all that concerning. There are naturally different levels in Floating City, the little rich ones aren't they suppressing others? The upper and lower limits in the inner city are frighteningly high, 3 against 6 is perfectly normal. That at least proves none of the 6 are much weaker than Caite, otherwise, they wouldn't be engaging in this kind of confrontation. How likely is it that Floating City will get involved? Tao Yu, hearing the name Pavis, recalled his experience in the divine sculpture world when those doomed pioneers had used his name, not seeming like a good person at all. If it's just a clash between inner city forces, unless it gets too out of hand and they intervene to mediate, they rarely get involved. If Brother Tao only intends to show Gangqi as a form of deterrence, then there shouldn't be any worries, that should be enough. Panda also shared his thoughts. In fact, even if they really intervened, with Brother Tao's relationship with the sons, there would be no need to worry. And in Panda's eyes, that is probably the most that Tao Yu would do. Despite appearing quite blustery, from the very first time they met, he had always been very measured in his actions. It was the same last time in the real world. Initiating a challenge first, yet playing by the rules and not causing any irreversible situations. Killing Taff was also done cleanly, without leaving any loose ends. All right, I understand now. Tao Yu suddenly remembered another issue that he had almost forgotten. Half a year ago, when he left the assembly area, he was followed by a group of people instigated by an alien-tamed wild boar man. It was only because it was little Karami, and he was pressed for time, that he didn't turn back to stealthily deal with them then and there. Is that Beast Tamer's family, by any chance, related to wild boar men? One of their main branches indeed prefers to implant that, and the suspected king among them with the strength of a senior partner is actually a rare white wild boar, a royal lineage of wild boar men known for their thick skin and immense strength, capable of using both battle techniques and bloodline abilities. Brother Tao, you shouldn't directly confront him. I think that after showing your Gangqi, he will give you face. Panda was still actively giving out his own suggestions. All right, I understand now. Chapter 295. The scorching sunlight baked the ground, making the air above the road surface appear slightly distorted. Occasional sandstorms blew over from the nearby Gobi, blanketing the road surface with a thin layer of dust, within which a few disorderly tire tracks could be seen. The dry hot wind couldn't bring any coolness, instead, it could take away the moisture from one's body. And it was in such an environment that a motorcycle sped along with a roaring sound, the wind blowing its rider's cloak with a rustling sound. The occasional passing motorcycles and off-road vehicles would take long detours, preferring to circle around the Gobi rather than disturb this big shot. The partner cloak's excellent radiation protection made it possible to block out the direct sunlight in such an environment. Their headquarters are in Las Vegas. It's actually convenient to take action, but to exterminate them, wouldn't that be a bit too harsh? Tao Yu twisted the throttle, the dry hot wind pouring into his cloak, bringing a feeling of dry heat. Actually, Tao Yu wasn't a fan of leaving no room for maneuver, he wasn't some kind of murder maniac, so he often indeed preferred to settle things amicably. But when some problems required a resolution to prevent future troubles, he wouldn't hesitate to act firmly. There was a bit of a mistake last time, had I known, I should have looked back and taken care of it in one fell swoop, lazy for what? Tao Yu steadily increased the speed of his motorcycle and let out a sigh. However, he quickly shook his head. What am I thinking? I'm here to resolve disputes and grievances, to reason things out, not to fight and kill. Although he was ambushed last time, since he was here for the reputation of his company, he couldn't afford to make too many enemies, just a little friction on the ground was enough. Using the last tailing as an excuse, he could force them to slaughter those wild boar people themselves, that way the deaths wouldn't be on his hands. How good! He himself was generous and wouldn't carry out any extermination. I have to learn to convince people with virtue and deal with them the same way Master Wang does. Just as Tao Yu took a deep breath and wanted to be calm and peaceful, as if to welcome spring's warm bloom, his hand on the throttle loosened. Then he suddenly turned his head and sped towards a point deep in the Gobi, off the highway. After driving the off-road motorcycle a certain distance into the Gobi, Tao Yu leapt off it, leaving the motorcycle to slide across the ground, and then he started to run with acceleration, kicking up a cloud of dust. I've just left the gathering place and already I'm being targeted. They've been paying quite close attention to my movements these past few days. Tao Yu's feet didn't stop, and he didn't use light-footed martial arts, but ran purely on brute force, the hot wind continually pouring into his cloak, causing a rustling noise. These last few days he had been helping Jack with inner strength and had a gathering with Park Ji-hyun and his group, and then waited for Panda to come back. One could say his days were very fulfilling, with nothing to hide. After all, he was in a gathering place, showing up specifically to be seen. People were secretly observing him, trying to understand his situation. Tao Yu displayed it openly, with nothing to hide. This time, when he left the gathering place, he was also aware of prying eyes, but he didn't mind it. Being a major shareholder in Dada Company, he was somewhat of a figure in the gathering place, and because he was seldom seen, ordinary pioneers might be clueless. But those at a certain level would definitely want to understand him. After being out of sight for too long, he also wanted to let them get to know him. Actually, this trip to visit the Pig King was just about getting acquainted and making friends. This could reduce a lot of trouble. But halfway there, the sudden hostility and a sense of crisis took Tao Yu by surprise, even shocked him. This sense of crisis wasn't light. This was a very rare situation nowadays. When lethal bullet blocked him, at most he felt a whiff of malice. The sense of crisis was minuscule. It meant that even if he was in poor condition, in a bad environment, the opponent would have a hard time causing substantial harm to him, no matter how much they excelled. But the feeling now was completely different. In the entire new development zone, there should be very few who could pose a real threat to him. Gadgets? Mysterious items capable of killing on first sight? Tao Yu wasn't sure, his mind was rapidly pondering. Weird, who could it be? A heretic god follower? Or brew? Tao Yu felt somewhat heavy-hearted and began to conduct a fast selection. The most likely were the heretic god followers. He had ruined their plans before, and it was indeed possible for them to have leaked information about him. And the weird things in the hands of these fanatics could be understood. The possibility of these lunatics targeting him was undoubtedly much greater than Brew's. Unless Brew had gone insane due to pollution, or the humiliation from last time had kept him tossing and turning in bed, it was unlikely he would do something so irrational. So, after racing for a while, Tao Yu suddenly raised his eyebrows and then made an abrupt stop. Following this, a high-speed shadow accompanied by a sonic boom slammed into the ground before him, and exploded into a small crater. A black spear was seen, sticking upside down in the ground. The black spear had a luxurious metallic sheen all over it and even had a mechanical feel with air intakes and jet nozzles. It clearly wasn't a cheap object. Not being his possession, Tao Yu didn't rashly go to take it, but instead moved away from it at a distance, and then turned back to see two pig-shaped shadows riding punk-style motorcycles heading his way. A black boar man and a white boar man. Beside the white boar man's broad motorcycle, there were also 3 long spears of the same model, which evidently, he had thrown earlier. So fierce and accurate, this dynamic spear must have an internal power source to boost it, otherwise, it wouldn't be capable of such speed. Tao Yu had already learned the identities of both from Panda. The White Boar Man was a beast tamer family's current genius, a core member of the development zone, and a future key training target. He was one of the development zone's 7 great kings, named Perry, and he bore the title Pig King. He had Royal Boar Man implants and mastered both human battle techniques and the Boar Man's bloodline abilities, possessing tremendous physical strength and seemingly on par with a high-level partner. The Black Boar Man was his subordinate, whose main strength was his notable beast-taming talent, and he was called Gang Mao. At this distance, while I'm still running at high speed, if I hadn't actively stopped myself, it would have been a direct hit to the soul. No wonder there are rumors of his high-level partner's strength, they weren't unfounded, but it's not him. Tao Yu stood calmly in place, watching the two approach. He had considered heretic god followers and brew, but it truly hadn't occurred to him that it would be the guy who had planned to mercifully let one go, to only push for the death of the instigator, who would take the initiative to seek him out. Tao Yu, seeing the two motorcycles racing towards him, didn't launch a preemptive attack. Because with these kinds of guys, it wasn't possible to bring about this sense of ominous danger. Indeed, after seeing them, he could confirm it. Perry's strength was indeed not weak, but that's all there was to it. What could be the reason? Had they teamed up with the heretic god followers? Seeing that Tao Yu did not run away, the black and white boar duo slowed down as they continued their chase. They formed a pincer formation to the left and right and confronted Tao Yu. It was you who arranged for someone to attack me last time, wasn't it? My share in the alien queen belongs to you too. Not only did you command others to attack me, but now you're also taking the field yourself. Isn't that going a bit too far? Tao Yu said to the black boar man Gang Mao in a calm tone. Hehe, you're asking me if I'm going too far even after chasing me down? Bro, this guy is kind of dumb. The black boar man chortled, looking at the dynamic spears stuck in the ground behind Tao Yu with a light mocking expression. Your strength is indeed not bad, able to dodge my strike. That's quite interesting. Perry leaned against his punk motorcycle looking somewhat indolent, but beneath that slack expression, his eyes were somewhat stern. If they had noticed the two of them running away in advance, they could have made the excuse that their underlings' lack of expertise got them discovered. But being able to avoid an attack from behind, that meant the guy really had some skills. A single dynamic spear from Bro must cost at least about 10,000, right? And he doesn't even dare to pick it up. Gang Mao, oblivious to his boss's seriousness, continued to suck up shamelessly. These things are worth 10,000. Tao Yu raised an eyebrow, but then he seemed to come to a realization. It made sense, they weren't consumables, they could be used again and again. A heavy kinetic impact, capable of externalizing inner strength, even a martial world expert couldn't withstand it. It was incredibly practical whether against thick-skinned beasts or pioneers with protective gear. Perhaps the only thing to fear was aliens that could cause damage to weapons. Hehe, you're really an unsophisticated bumpkin from the outer city, toiling away up until now, only knowing how to run. What's the point? Gang Mao sneered, his boar tusks even dripping with strands of saliva. You say you were so scared that you fled the settlement for half a year, so why come back? You might as well have let me finish you off last time. After finishing his speech, he even turned back to his boss and said. Bro, since you didn't kill him with one shot, we should try our best to capture him alive, right? His ability is really useful. Shut your mouth. Perry shook his arm and walked down from the motorcycle, saying coldly. I told you before, if we choose to make a move and still hold back, we might be the ones to fall. We cannot capture alive with intent, it is just an aside. Today, our main goal is to cut out the trouble. After rebuking his subordinate, an indifferent expression appeared on his porcine face. Brother Tao indeed has hidden depths. We all underestimated you, thinking you relied mainly on connections with the Suns, obtaining some early benefits and adventures. But now it seems your growth in this period hasn't been small either. After saying this and seeing that Tao Yu had no other reaction, he paused and then added somewhat wistfully. Honestly, at the beginning, I wanted to make peace with you, but on second thought, pressing you to bow would undoubtedly leave you bearing a grudge, and since you can reach high places and have some energy, you might cause trouble at crucial times. So. I'm sorry, but we must do this. As his words fell, Perry let out a roar, his body swelling to over 3 meters, with muscles nearly deforming. He grabbed the remaining 3 spears from the side of the motorcycle, and while rushing toward Tao Yu, he threw them one after the other. Continue your saga on Empire. The terrifying throwing power, combined with the dynamic spear's own propulsion, caused 3 supersonic booms in the dry desert environment. Watching the 3 attacks that sealed off his retreat in a T-shape, Tao Yu just frowned. Indeed. The source of danger wasn't him. Casually stepping to the side, letting the 3 spears whistle past him, Tao Yu's body gradually emitted a blood-red gang chi. Let's deal with it using gang chi first. Chapter 296. How is that possible? Gang chi. Tao Yu casually dodged 3 attacks with the ease of a crane stepping through a garden, not even his breathing rhythm was disturbed. That sudden emergence of gang chi indeed caused the faces of the black and white wild boar men who came to kill him to twist. How could what was supposed to be a foolproof operation turn out like this? No wonder he dared to venture out of the city alone so carelessly. He had actually mastered gang chi. In the entire development zone of the inner city pioneers, not a single one had mastered gang chi yet. The difficulty of this was even higher than that of the transformation side. Damn it! Panda didn't hesitate at all, slapping his own neck as he charged over. The injection instantly pierced his neck, and the medicine took effect at the fastest speed. Roar! The wild boar man, who had already swelled to over 3 meters tall with muscles bulging, expanded another half-meter the next moment. His originally white skin, like granite, seemed to have been scorched red by fire, emanating white steam all over. Several streaks of battle techniques enhancements flickered on his body. Despite his increased size, his speed surged once again. As he ran, the ground seemed to tremble, and his brutal strength combined with his massive size brought a sense of extreme oppression. A strong stench of sweat hit Tao Yu's face, making him frown. He casually raised his hand to block the axe chop coming from above, using the energy of great shift of Kyunkan without opting for a head-on collision. With just a flick of his hand and a sidestep, he moved lightly to the side, pulling down with his wrist, using the opponent's momentum and downward force to lead it along. As Tao Yu stepped on the goba beneath him, causing it to crack and sink, the towering beast was flung into the air, spinning more than a dozen times before crashing heavily to the ground. After landing, it rolled over several times, kicking up a cloud of dust in the gobi. Having thrown his opponent off with that force, Tao Yu slightly tilted his head and clamped his hand in the air, catching a bullet. Turning to look at the black wild boar man who had gotten out of the car and was frantically shooting at him, he flicked his hand in return. Thwack! The bristly pig's eye burst, blood spurted, and the brain was churned into mush by the bullet. Following the inertia of his sprint, he continued for 2 more steps before collapsing in a bloody heap. At this moment, Panda, who was still reeling from being thrown, managed to get up, holding his head and staring at Tao Yu in complete shock. What was that just now? He was known for his strength. Even those stronger than him would choose other ways to defeat him. But this man actually confronted and defeated him head-on. The strike he had received just now was extremely uncomfortable, feeling as if he was striking himself. Your defense is pretty high. Stay tuned to Empire. Seeing the other party stand up so easily as if nothing happened, Tao Yu was not particularly concerned. The impact just now showed that this creature's physical stats were strong. But stats piled up quickly without the refinement of technical skill tend to be too straightforward. In terms of qualifying as a senior partner, the data is certainly up to the mark, but in a life-or-death fight, without utilizing some expensive equipment and props, one is likely to be taken by surprise and killed by veteran mid-level partners with special weapons targeted at them. However, Tao Yu's attention was only 3 parts on this white boar at the moment. A creature with no self-destruct ability, how could it possibly threaten him? Just now, after he had flung it away and killed the black pig, Tao Yu felt the sense of impending danger growing even stronger. Who else is watching this place? If it's not him, then let's deal with the unexpected element first. Tao Yu walked slowly toward the other party, casually pulling out the long spear that was stuck in the ground as he passed by. Just as Tao Yu was about to return the favor with a spear throw of his own, the arm he had raised for the throw suddenly twisted, and his footsteps abruptly turned 180 degrees. His entire body coiled like a spring, his feet cracking the ground with explosive force, sending out shockwaves as he instantly hurled the spear toward the sky. Bang! The propulsive spear sped away, creating an umbrella-shaped ripple in the air as it shot straight into the heavens. But in the next moment, it eerily stopped midair, defying the natural laws of physics by hovering there. Oh dear, such keen perception, how interesting! As a semi-transparent fluid slowly receded, a handsome figure with blonde hair appeared hovering in midair. And he was holding the long spear in his hand. Then, the figure slowly descended. Tao Yu also noticed a feather casually stuck upside down on the man's head, seemingly creating a field of wind. Magic equipment. Han Ye, sir. The white boar man, who had already grown fearful, showed a look of shock and despair on his face upon seeing the slowly descending figure. Tao Yu also recognized the identity of the newcomer. Han Ye could be considered one of the floating city descendants directly related to the Sons, currently in charge of the base's external affairs and starting to take over some of the map-running tasks from the brother and sister team. Among the 3 later floating city pioneers directly related to the Sons, he vaguely had a leading position. Panda estimated his strength might be comparable to Sight's. So it's Lord Han Ye, I must have misunderstood just now, my sincere apologies. Having recognized the other party, Tao Yu bowed slightly to show his apology. However, deep inside he was filled with intense caution. Damn it! As a direct descendant of the Sons, secretly following him, watching coldly as he was attacked, and just now even revealing murderous intent. This guy is not one of us. I was just out on patrol and sensed something amiss here, so I came to check it out. I certainly didn't expect to see such an interesting show. Hanya landed from the air, casually tossed the spear, and it pierced through the white boar man's thigh, pinning him firmly to the ground. After being pinned down, the white boar man didn't dare to cry out, only letting out a muffled grunt before miserably saying, "Lord Hanya, it's all my fault, I'm willing to accept punishment. Please spare my life, I am ready to atone for my sins." Caught red-handed by a prominent figure of Floating City while attempting an assassination, and especially against a direct descendant of the opposing side, he didn't dare argue and could only show that he still had value to offer. Some things can be done but must not be found out. Once the situation is blown, it could implicate the entire family. You certainly deserve to die. Hanya's tone was gentle, but he looked at the pinned boar man with the cold indifference one might reserve for livestock. Such a waste, taking up so much of your family's resources, having such talent, implanted with that kind of bloodline, yet you couldn't suppress an outsider, and you talk about value. His words carried a dismissive and mocking tone. While these words reached both Tao Yu and Perry's ears, they also got completely different implications from them. Perry, who had thought the situation was hopeless, suddenly saw a glimmer of light in his eyes, realizing that things were not as he had thought. Does this mean, he attacked us on the way, killed my brother, and wounded me? You discovered it and stopped it? Oh no, it was my desperate counter-kill. You were just slightly late in arriving. More and more excited, Perry grinned with a broken fang, looking ferociously triumphant. Seeing that Hanya remained non-committal, busying himself with his nails, Perry chuckled menacingly, pulled the propulsive spear from his wound, and rose to his feet again. At that moment, his eyes looking at Tao Yu also reflected a hint of pity. "Kid, you dared to offend Lord Hanya? Haha. Today, you've carved your own path to death." Chapter 297, Authority. "Lord Hanya, I want to be a ghost who knows why it's dead. We both work for the Suns, so why is this happening?" "I couldn't possibly threaten your position," Tao Yu said. Tao Yu looked at Hanya before him, wanting to know where exactly things had gone wrong. Before Hanya could speak, however, Pei Li chastised. "Shut up. If the Lord wants you dead, you have to die. There's no need for so many reasons." With a shake of his body, Pei Li was transformed into Hanya's loyal dog. Yet, upon hearing Tao Yu's words, Hanya appeared indifferent and careless. "Indeed, there is a certain reason." Seeing the other party ready to speak, Tao Yu listened attentively. Truth be told, he really didn't want to be at odds with the people of Floating City. As things stood, whether he won or lost, it was a loss. His potential wasn't worth wasting on these matters. He could be unrestrained in front of inner-city residents because he knew that those who threatened him were limited, but Floating City was a different matter. Tao Yu also had a suspicion that it might be the issue with the rich girl. That kid was handsome, his abilities were strong, so it was possible he had some ideas. But where had he slipped up? While Tao Yu was pondering whether he'd been spotted coming back on a motorboat, Hanya's words left him somewhat stunned. Young Master Sun used to love cutting corners and being lazy with his cultivation, but to think that he would actually learn a skill just for you, this is simply unforgivable. Tao Yu's expression hardened as he saw a twist in Hanya's originally handsome face. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. He did remember, during the last return, that Sun Shiking had promised to help him find a mental skill, indeed saying he would learn one first. But he didn't know how this maniac Hanya found out. Although Tao Yu understood that Sun Shiking was very attractive, and sometimes he would zone out looking at him because of his sister's relationship with Shiking, but to come wanting to kill because of it. And it seemed that he didn't care much about the consequences either, which was just too outrageous. Have the pollution levels affected your mind, causing you to go mad? Lord Hanya, there might be some misunderstanding here. Actually, I'm quite fickle in love, with many women already. I really... What? You dare to look down on young Master Sun? You deserve to die. No, I really like him, but my status... You dare to like young Master Sun? You deserve death. Seeing Hanya grow increasingly irate, Tao Yu began to forego explanations. Could it be that this fellow had absorbed some high pollution skill that affected his senses? All he could do was sigh and make a final attempt to save the situation. Lord Hanya, How can we solve this then? After all, we are both working for young Master Sun, sharing his burdens. These words made Hanya pause for a moment, his expression surprisingly softened. You're right. To reach such strength so quickly, talent, opportunity, and luck are indispensable. In the abyss, those with good luck often do better than the strong. I also wish there were more good fortune around young Master Sunday. He then extended his foot, pulled up his pant leg. Kneel down, kiss my shoe, and then accept my reward. Take my brand, and I can allow you to continue to alleviate young Master Sun's worries. Afterwards, he looked at Tao Yu with a hint of peculiar interest. Now that I look at you closely, you're quite handsome indeed. You might just be worthy. Listening to his predatory words and seeing Pei Li trembling once more, Tao Yu let out a soft sigh and began to walk towards him. All right, this is my... Damn it! Up to that point, Tao Yu had really tried to resolve their animosity, but now there was clearly no backing out. No forbearance left, no need to endure any longer. The surroundings slowed down as the threads of world time flowed like waves. A single thread around Tao Yu broke off and began to wrap around him. Original time. Intervention. Twofold. Fourfold. Eightfold. Demonization. The shadow force stored in the shadows wrapped around Tao Yu like a tsunami. Yuan Force seamlessly infused, keeping him at his peak. In slow motion, Hanya's face was still wearing a satisfied smile, his eyes carrying a disgustingly lewd thought. Under Tao Yu's explosive burst, he arrived in front of Hanya in the blink of an eye. True Yuan, Fist Intention, and Gang Chi fused together to unleash a stunning shockwave that bombarded out with full force across 100 miles. Under the ferocious claws transformed by demonization, each attribute surged once again, with the blood dragon directly enveloping the shadow to become a black dragon. This time it wasn't just a strike through the air. The essence of force was integrated over Tao Yu's claw covered in a black dragon's head, stacking all his power in one place. Roar! Hanya hadn't even fully grasped what was going on when a dragon's chant echoed in his mind. Even though his spiritual cultivation was actually quite strong with great resilience, he still momentarily lost his wits under the influence of the fist intention. Allowing that palm to bombard right onto his face. Terrifying power erupted, and under the near instantaneous strike of this acceleration effect, it hit its target directly. Yet, beneath this fearsome strike powerful enough to shatter steel, the feedback Tao Yu felt in his hand made his expression subtly change. Without hesitation, the spiral shadow acceleration instantly exceeded the opponent's recoil speed, eerily appearing behind him and striking Hanya's back of the head with a move called Regret of the Rising Dragon. Not enough. Feeling the same sensation again, Tao Yu knew it must be some kind of life-saving item. With a demonically transformed grimace on his face, his figure changed once more. Celestial Pole Big Dipper Array. 7 after images, 7 Tao Yus. Die for me, ah! Tao Yu dared not pause for the slightest moment. With the opponent possessing such an incomprehensible life-saving item, who knew if he had any attack items beyond Tao Yu's understanding? He could feel the opponent being constantly suppressed by his fist intention, not managing to muster any counterattack, but he dared not give the opponent any chance. Celestial Pole Big Dipper Array's 7 stars unite, with the Big Dipper's star power flowing ceaselessly. Hanya was pounded back and forth within a small area like a punching bag. Each strike that caused an upswing of air sent a wave of sand and dust flying, with each hit visibly exploding into twisted rings of air in the atmosphere. Damn it! Hanya felt the oppression in his mind, distorted with the sense of attacks far surpassing his own limits. How could this be possible? How could there be such a strong attack? Just give me a moment. Just one chance. Just one. In Hanya's eyes, it seemed like a scale emerged, the phantom tipping more and more with each attack like weights being placed on one side. Since the emergence of the Celestial Pole Big Dipper Array, in just a second's time it had tipped past halfway. Impossible. How can it be so fast? How can it be so powerful? Crack. The scale reached its limit, and a crack appeared in Hanya's eyeball. And Tao Yu keenly felt a change in the sensation on his hands. As expected, you have limits. He raised his hand and pressed it against Hanya's face, looking into the eyes filled with unwilling resentment through his fingers. You dare! Die! The other 6 shadows almost solidified, the 7 stars unite integrating into Tao Yu's true body, as if sketching the character death in the air. The lingering image of the character death instantly dragged Hanya down to the ground, smashing out a deep crater upon impact. All the power of the shadow force converged towards Hanya's face, Tao Yu focusing all his strength on one final blow that instantly crushed his entire head. Boom! As Hanya's head exploded, the pit that had been made from the impact doubled in size due to a secondary collapse. Cracks spread from the earth's surface, creeping all the way to the foot of the petrified Pei Li. Feeling the ground shake, looking at the demonically transformed figure climbing out of the pit, looking at the black fog emanating from its body, looking at the claws dripping with thick blood plasma and brain matter. Continue your journey with Empire. Pei Li only felt that this was a demon crawling out of the abyss. The blood-stained claws kept growing larger in his eyes, but the last thing in Pei Li's consciousness was an ironic thought. What am I thinking? This place was the abyss to begin with. Boom! The giant pig's head burst at once. Chapter 298, Power, the Price. Damn it, what a loss! Tao Yu shook the blood plasma off his palms and reverted from his demonization, his expression turning ugly as he looked at the pig corpse on the ground. Damn it, killing someone from the floating city means a loss no matter the outcome. Glancing at his Yuan Force, he had spent nearly 100,000. I was too cautious, constantly keeping at full strength. There was no need to recover so urgently. It was only after the fight that Tao Yu let out a sigh in post-battle reflection. He had been worried that his opponent might use something lethal, so he kept infusing Yuan Force, thinking that if his head were to explode, he could still save himself through demonization. But his relentless attacks never gave his opponent that chance. Floating city scum, their equipment can't be used and direct absorption barely recovers anything, ah. Tao Yu quickly turned around, intending to search the corpse without delay. What if the other guy had something like a soul lamp or similar? Everything had to be fast. However, just as Tao Yu reached the edge of the pit he had created, he suddenly felt a chill all over his body. He saw that the completely obliterated head of Hanya began to twist in his clothes. The originally white robe, now stained red with blood, exuded an inexplicable creepiness. As it started to twist, it seemed as if it began to move with the body. A supremely evil presence emerged, turning Tao Yu's complexion deathly pale. Are you really not dead? Tao Yu lunged towards the blood-soaked garment, infusing it with the Big Dipper's deadly intent and fist intention, seeking to suppress and eradicate it. Yet the blood-soaked garment, which seemed to have been possessed by something, had no real offensive power. Although Tao Yu held it down, it hardly resisted. Only Tao Yu, who was grinding away, could feel how resilient the thing was. Fist intention, now at the second stage of deification, could interfere with the physical world. Even steel would melt under the full force of the Big Dipper's deadly intent after grinding for so long. But there wasn't the slightest damage on the surface of the garment, only something attached to the bloodied cloth was being worn away. Tao Yu glanced at the time, made up his mind, and began to destructively absorb all the equipment on Hanya's body that could absorb Yuan Force, not leaving a single piece behind. Meanwhile, with one hand he continued to grind the garment, and with the other, he quickly dragged over the two punk motorcycles, also tossing the corpse of the black and white wild boar into the pit, and skillfully poured gasoline over it. Where did this corpse-dissolving liquid come from? No, in the future, I'll need to get something for supersession. Wait a minute. Tao Yu summoned Wino, which had turned into a storage container, from the shadows. The bulky Wino pounced on the three corpses and sucked wildly before returning back to the shadows. Only then did Tao Yu start the fire. I hope it's of some use. Tao Yu sighed, watching the blazing fire in front of him, and threw the two punk motorcycles into the fire pit as well. It was not until then that the thing on the bloodied garment was completely wiped out by Tao Yu. This was definitely not the spirit of Hanya, even if he had high spiritual cultivation, it couldn't have been this resilient. It was something strange. Tao Yu felt the gathering of Yuan Force towards the bloody garment in his hand. Was it actually a Yuan Force creature? This pollution is too exaggerated. Tao Yu continued towards the depths of the Gobi, just in case, while also feeling the almost tangible pollution on the bloodied garment. However, this was nothing for Tao Yu, he simply absorbed it all directly. He gained a whopping tens of thousands of Yuan Force. But compared to the Yuan Force, the sudden appearance of a new skill nearly caused Tao Yu to lose his footing. A light cluster, shaped like a balance scale, rose up, seeming to want to occupy the core, but upon reaching the edge of divinity, it paused and then began revolving around it like a satellite. Discover hidden content at Empire. Authority, cost, everything in the world has a clear price, it's just about what you are willing to pay. Authority is a fragment of the abyss's rules made manifest, and this fragment has been passed down through 17 generations. Each user has added a blood curse, only the matching bloodline can use it without suffering extreme pollution. Tao Yu momentarily felt enlightened. This is Hanya's means of defending against my attacks. Such a powerful ability, is this the foundation of the floating city? However, this must be an extremely rare core ability for the people of the floating city, even something that could be considered a family heirloom. After death, it materializes and the ability can be regained, as long as it is not lost in the abyss, it can be passed down from generation to generation. And because of the accumulated bloodline curse, normally there would be no chance for an enemy to kill and loot it, and it's even very likely that it could be used for revenge. Unfortunately, Tao Yu didn't care about things being tainted or not. While continuing to maintain high speed, Tao Yu devoted most of his attention to his new ability. Also, the influx of skill information made it clear what the previous user, Hanya, had done. The other party wanted immortality, but to obtain a physically undying body, a mental twist was paid as the price first. No other aspects of the personality had changed, just that one thing. Moreover, this was just the initial exchange requirement. When truly beginning the undying process, one would start to overdraw Yuan Force, become strongly bound to it, and the consumption would keep increasing with each use, until it became unbearable. Whether it was the shackles of lifespan or encountering accidents, both would trigger it. Indeed, it could forcefully prolong life, a life-saving divine skill, but it could hardly be considered true immortality. I knew it, how could he withstand so many of my attacks? I would have been beaten to death myself. Tao Yu finally understood the reason. But the next moment, he was startled by the cost of deification presented before him. The first deification cost, 100,000. What the hell is this? The first deification of the 9 yen true scripture was only 5,000, and 100,000 surpassed the cost of many skills' second deification. But after hesitating for a moment, Tao Yu directly completed the deification of this extremely special ability. There were no physical changes, nor any mental pleasure, there was no feedback at all. The only difference was that the skill orb turned pale gold, reminding him that he had indeed completed deification. An ability completely detached from the body and mind. Authority, cost, you can change the exchange cost, but the cooldown will increase with each change. After a month, you can reset the cooldown interval. This made Tao Yu's eyes light up. The first generation's authority could only anchor an exchange once at activation, but he could make continuous changes and attempts. Although the increments would continue to increase, after waiting a month without use, they would revert back to the initial stage. The first interval was just 1 second, the second time 2 seconds, the third time 4 seconds, and so on, but after a month it would return to a 1-second change cooldown. This even implied that aside from making a long-term anchoring, he might be able to make temporary adjustments even during a battle. This was a significant enhancement over the practicality when Hanya used it. If I also anchor Yuan Force, it would be too much of a loss. I can already use Yuan Force for recovery, and I can think more broadly. It's not necessary to transfer damage, enhancing recovery capability, and endurance are all entirely possible. Without a doubt, the authority represented by this fragment of rules had limits, and Hanya's death by his hand was the best proof. However, how to use this limit and shape it into the most cost-effective thing is worth pondering over. I have mental immunity, I have one proof forever proof. If I can find a way to shift some of the costs onto these, it could instantly create a qualitative change. It may be difficult, but it's entirely possible to try. I can take my time and try it step by step. However, after having killed someone from the floating city, I'm not sure if the potential threat has been completely eliminated. And those 2 Boer people, if they were sent to assassinate, does someone else know about it? And Panda? Tao Yu's eyes flickered, but in the end, he sighed. Still too kind-hearted. If they really traced it back, whether Panda knew or not would be irrelevant, there was no need to be so ruthless. For now, I still have to seek help from the rich girl, I really lack experience in this area, sigh. Tao Yu was also somewhat helpless at this moment, he really had no clue about the floating city's methods. Authority suddenly emerged here, what if there are even more exaggerated ones? What if they find any clues? Big Thigh, save me. Chapter 299, Role Play. It's not often, what's up? Arriving at the base entrance dust-covered, Tao Yu listened to the cheery voice of the little rich girl coming from his watch and quietly breathed a sigh of relief. She seemed unaware of Han Ye's situation, otherwise, someone dying in Floating City wouldn't be in such high spirits. And if Han Ye's family had the means to know and could communicate through the air, they would have the ability to inform the little rich girl. At least for now, she doesn't appear to be aware. There's an urgent matter. Tao Yu would definitely not explain clearly over the communication device. Haha, do I have to open my mouth again? The little rich girl teased, and while others might not think much of it, assuming it was probably about asking Miss Sun for something, Tao Yu felt a bit awkward hearing it, which even diluted his sense of urgency a little. That's part of it, but there's another matter. I need to talk face to face. Fine, just come here, treat it like giving a report. Right now, someone is discussing work with Shiking. Knock on the door politely. Okay. Tao Yu let out a slight breath of relief and then briskly walked towards their residence. Now, the planning inside the base was getting more and more sophisticated, and the residential areas were also divided. Currently, only inner-city pioneers or outsiders with a talent ranking of B or above were allowed to live in the core dormitory area of the base, others pitched tents in certain designated areas. Without exception, the areas for pitching tents were located near the latrines of the barracks. The relevant areas were already secured by guards, mostly natives, many of whom came from Monster World. However, Tao Yu's identity was verified, and he had no trouble getting through. He arrived directly in front of the officer building where the Sun's siblings were staying, and then Tao Yu saw Park Ji-hyun, armed with a real gun and nuclear bullets, standing guard and taking care of the registration, as she had been specifically transferred there by Sun Xiu. The little dragon girl was also staying with them, teaching about meridians and acupoints. Boss, are you here to report on the mission? Enjoy exclusive content from Empire. Park Ji-hyun greeted Tao Yu with a cheerful smile and then pulled out a registration book. You need to register. You can't even read. Tao Yu teased her and then scribbled something unintelligible. Park Ji-hyun then pressed the doorbell. What is it? It was Sun Shiking's voice. There must be an intercom connected to the doorbell nearby. Intermediate partner Tao Yu has a situation to report. It's been scheduled in advance with Miss Sunday. Knowing there were others inside, Tao Yu spoke formally. Come in. Soon, Tao Yu heard the sound of slippers tapping, and when the door opened, he saw a blonde blue-eyed girl in homeware, resembling a big teddy bear. And looking at her face, Tao Yu immediately matched her with the information Panda had given him. One of the 3 inner-city pioneers directly under the Suns, Tria, mainly responsible for communication and acting somewhat like a secretary-general. To hold such a position, she must indeed be a confidant trusted by the Sun's siblings. Compared to the usual calm of the Sun's siblings, the information described Tria as decisive and assertive, a quintessential strong woman. Her expression was meticulous, a bit too serious perhaps. Her office lady attire and pencil skirt, combined with her hosiery and naturally austere aura, indeed created a perfect match. I've seen Tria. You're Tao Yu, right? I've heard about you, a major shareholder of Dada Company, an intermediate partner. It's rare for an outsider to get this far. Don't fail to appreciate the kindness of the Suns. Tria was preachy, with a somewhat lofty air. If she met someone submissive, they would probably really enjoy this type. Etched in my heart. Tao Yu behaved very submissively, without revealing the slightest flaw. Come in, put on shoe covers, and if your eyes dare to wander, I'll gouge them out. It was probably because she noticed the way Tao Yu had looked at the bodycon dress and thigh-highs earlier that Tria added an extra warning. How dare I, you're overly concerned. Tria responded noncommittally to Tao Yu's words. Although the kid had indeed glanced around when she opened the door, he hadn't kept staring, and he was indeed quite handsome, so she let it pass. But as far as she was concerned, she wouldn't allow anyone to have the audacity to offend the young master and young mistress. Humph, I'll be watching you. And so, Tao Yu didn't even try to get his own slippers but methodically put on the shoe covers and followed the office lady in a disciplined manner. Unlike her usual attire of cartoon t-shirts and bare long legs at home, this time Sun Shiking was also in formal wear, dressed in a white floating city gown similar to Han Ye's, and she didn't tease Tao Yu with a hello this time either. Instead, she sat meticulously on the sofa, and the 2 cups of tea in front of her were probably hers and Tria's, with a hint of honey's sweet fragrance. Upon seeing Tao Yu come in, she just nodded with a suppressed smile. My sister is waiting for you upstairs, go on up. I have seen Master Sunday. Tao Yu also greeted him respectfully and then prepared to head upstairs with a very cautious and careful demeanor. Master, would you like me to go up and keep an eye on things? Tria asked for instructions. Are you still worried about my sister's strength? We haven't finished our previous conversation. How is the construction of the rainforest route going? What is the traffic situation? And the airport's planning and scheduling? As Sun Shiking began to inquire about work with a serious face, she gestured to Tao Yu to hurry upstairs, making him involuntarily smile. A little helper indeed. Upon reaching the second floor, Tao Yu saw the young wealthy girl in a familiar cartoon t-shirt, sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat, with little dragon girl speaking earnestly by her side. One with an enchanting allure, another with an air of refined detachment, their distinctly different auras made for a striking scene, momentarily stunning Tao Yu, but luckily he was aware there was a visitor present. So he greeted her earnestly. Miss Sun, Dragon Girl. Little Dragon Girl showed a rare smile upon seeing Tao Yu, seemingly happy to see a familiar face. With her personality lacking any sense of superiority or inferiority, she was the first to address him. Master Tao, you dropped my sister off with me last time, and I haven't seen you for a long time. Sorry, I notified my supervisor. I was tied up with something else at that time. Where is Li Machu? Tao Yu inquired. She's tending to the jade bees. The swarm is still small, and there aren't many flowers nearby, so the honey is currently only enough for the people in this house. I'll go make you a cup of honey water. No need, I'm here to report on work. Tao Yu frantically signaled the young wealthy girl. The calmer one is in momentous times, the more urgent the matter, the more one shouldn't panic. Appearing too anxious could spoil everything. Dragon Girl, you go down first, I need to talk to him alone. Sun Xiu nodded indifferently, signaling Little Dragon Girl to leave first. Oh, okay then. Little Dragon Girl agreed, not minding at all, went downstairs, and thoughtfully closed the door. Only after the door was closed did the young wealthy girl produce a blocking orb and completed the seal. Then she gave Tao Yu a flirtatious glance. Look at how anxious you are, what is it? If it's not something important, hee. Sun Xiu smirked, revealing a little tiger tooth, causing Tao Yu to involuntarily shudder, but he quickly spoke sternly. Well, I've killed Han Ye. Chapter 300, Settle it. Even with the mentality of a minor rich girl, upon hearing Tao Yu's words, she seemed to be struck speechless. Then, she appeared to have a slight headache as she tapped at her own head. Explain clearly, which Han Ye? The one you're thinking of, the external affairs supervisor of the new development zone base. You killed him? Are you all right? Any injuries? The minor rich girl got up and circled Tao Yu, prodding here and there, pinching now and then, and only after confirming he wasn't missing any flesh did she finally breathe a sigh of relief. What happened? How were you able to kill him? Okay, never mind that for now, start from the beginning and tell me what caused all this. Sun Xiu let out a sigh, her pretty face seemingly conflicted. When Tao Yu saw her concern for his safety before discussing the matter, he felt warmed inside. Hugging her waist and smelling the delicate fragrance at the tip of his nose, he felt unusually clear-headed, and he explained everything from beginning to end. From the time he was chased by beast tamers instigated by boar people to his plans to return for a show of strength by targeting them as shooting practice, and then to their ambush for him, ending with Han Ye's intervention. What? He actually harbored those thoughts towards Shiking. Sun Xiu was almost at a loss for words. On a normal day, Han Ye acted so appropriately that she wouldn't have chosen him to assist on this side of the task. Their power side effects, hey. Sun Xiu pondered for a moment as if she thought of something, then she finally spoke up. You did well. I'll go over there later and take care of things. Don't worry about being found out. Han Ye has artifacts for communication with the secular world on him, so his family regularly checks in with him. I'll issue an assignment for him to go out on a reconnaissance mission, and they will only sense something is wrong when they fail to reach him at the regular check-in. It's not a big problem. Sun Xiu thought quickly, and then gave Tao Yu a strange look. You rascal, how many of the pioneers experts in this base have you rubbed the wrong way? Even Floating City has started to notice you. If it had been just Han Ye's issue, Sun Xiu could have used the excuse that he had improper thoughts about Sun Shiking to create trouble for him, but now, it was a fact that Tao Yu had killed him, so she needed to use this safer method. Even the sons couldn't kill a legitimate member of a subordinate family without cause, or else the unity would break down, and the teams would be hard to manage. I've even set my sights on you, so this is nothing. Tao Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief and his hand slipped under the t-shirt, truly unable to resist. Alright, I still need to tie up loose ends for you. After patting the hand that was causing trouble, she deftly slipped off a pair of black underwear from under her t-shirt and tossed it to Tao Yu. Handle it yourself for now, I'm heading over there. Don't worry, I've got your back if the sky falls. With her back towards Tao Yu, she waved her hand. Sun Qiu's figure flashed, she got dressed in her battle gear with the aid of telekinesis, swiftly flew out the window, and disappeared into semi-transparency in a blink. And Tao Yu, holding the warm and fragrant gift in his hands, stared in the direction where the minor rich girl had left, his eyes slightly unfocused. Initially, he was truly panicked about having killed someone from Floating City, but now he was filled with a sense of security. Oh no! Tao Yu didn't have to wait long. In roughly half an hour, Sun Qiu flew back in through the window, giving Tao Yu an okay gesture. It's taken care of, just don't blab about it and you'll be fine. Do I need to do anything else? Business as usual. Didn't you kill 2 of the beast tamers? Just let that slip accidentally later. You'll have to rely on your own strength to handle the trouble when it happens. You can make a big deal out of it if necessary. If needed, I'll administer a symbolic punishment to you, so have a good plan ready. Sun Qiu's words caused Tao Yu's eyes to light up with understanding. Discover exclusive tales on Empire. Keep the 2 matters separate. Yeah, I used a prop. Hanya never came back, after all, he was in charge of external affairs. Then I'm relieved. Seeing Tao Yu relax, the minor rich girl proudly puffed out her chest. Don't worry, I will protect you. However, she then thought of Tao Yu's strength in killing Hanya and said with some hesitation. But did anything strange happen after you killed Hanya? Be careful not to be entangled by that thing. Tao Yu knew she was referring to the eerie blood garment and the power it held. There was a blood-colored garment, what about it, will it leave any marks or scent on me? Tao Yu brought up his concerns once more. I don't know actually, let me take a good look. Sun Qiu flashed a charming and slightly evil smile, resembling a little demon. Wait, didn't you say it would alert those below? When I came back, I saw Tria had already left, only Shiking and Long Er are there, it's fine. Wait a second. Relax, Long Er is very innocent, she won't think too much. Downstairs, Sun Shiking was drinking honey water, felt the vibrations from above, and was also curious, she really wanted to go up and have a look. Little dragon girl was also holding her cup of honey water, somewhat confused as she looked up. What's happening? Probably sister is disciplining him. Ah? Discipline him that harshly? Yeah, maybe he didn't behave, don't worry, my sister will be reasonable about it. Sun Shiking watched little dragon girl's innocent appearance, laughed softly to herself, but she also liked her simplicity very much. Such character can only stay nearby for protection, otherwise it would be dangerous outside. Should I go up there and persuade her? Little dragon girl hesitated, after all, she had taught the young mistress quite a few things and thought maybe she could persuade her a little bit. No, if you go up there, you would definitely get more upset and make things worse. Let's leave it like that, besides, I need to learn too. You teach me first, but there are some ways in which I'm different from humans, not sure if it would be a problem. Sun Shiking blinked, ready to give support once again. Alright. Little dragon girl showed a glimpse of sympathy for Tao Yu but sighed and decided to no longer pay attention to the upstairs. Young Master Tao sometimes really does ask for trouble, being disciplined might actually be good for him to focus. Tao Yu, his face somewhat pale from punishment, came downstairs without disturbing Sun Shiking, who was sitting in meditation, and nodded to little dragon girl, who was by her side watchfully. Little dragon girl, seeing Tao Yu's drained appearance, sighed. The hits were heavy, indeed, but with no visible injuries, it was controlled. She wondered what he had done wrong. After a thought, little dragon girl, with her bare feet, tapped lightly and floated to the side, picked up a teacup, and tiptoed over to Tao Yu, handing it to him. She whispered. Honey from the jade bee, have some to regain your strength. Thanks, thank you. Tao Yu, seeing little dragon girl offering something for recovery, almost thought she knew what happened, but looking at her pure, unblemished eyes, he knew he had probably misunderstood. He finished in one gulp. The warm water mixed with honey was immediately sweet and fragrant upon entering his mouth, soothing as it went down his throat and settling in the stomach, spreading a warm sensation. No wonder little dragon girl could be reared on honey, this stuff is rich in both nutrients and energy. After expanding the breeding operations, it's going to be a good thing. When I have time, I need to see Li Machu. The little rich girls may not fancy it, but I can take it for use in the company. It's the perfect time to test the effects of the power and select the most suitable one for regular state anchoring.